Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday the 17th of May 2026. This is our 237th Tafseer session. The format will be Tafseer, followed by Q&A, preference being given to people who speak directly on the mic. And then after that, a Palestine update, which will be exclusively on Zoom and then uploaded later to Rumble. But that's the format. So we encourage you to join our Zoom if you can, if you want to hear everything and engage with direct dialogue. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for our Rumble channel for it to be uploaded in the coming couple of days or so. In addition, questions. If you have questions, try to be as succinct as possible, reference as well as possible, and do appreciate we can't always answer your questions if you're bombarding us in the channel or on our Zoom. We can't guarantee getting through to your question the first time round. And as far as referencing narrations, it's always to be encouraged so that you get a full answer. And if there's something that has been answered before or retreading previous answers, would recommend that you review our Usuli points, which have been already broadcast on around issues such as general permissibility and the like. And so your questions could have an answer which actually has some kind of structure to it. Anyway, the date, as I say, is the 17th of May 2026. We are on Surah Al-Qasas, Ayah 61. I will recite that and then hand over to the professor for explanation.
And remind the people about the Tawheed tomorrow at 9. Next will be at 8. Yeah.
So Tawheed will be tomorrow at 9 o'clock as usual. And then from the following week, 8 p.m., because the times Maghrib will be starting after 9, and the time by then would have merged as well because of perpetual twilight in the UK. Okay, so Ayah 61, Surah Al-Qasas. أَفَمَنْ وَعَدْنَاهُ وَعْدًا حَسَنًا فَهُوَ لَاقِيهِ كَمَنْ مَتَّعْنَاهُ مَتَاعَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا ثُمَّ هُوَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مِنَ الْمُحْضَرِينَ. It is then he to whom we have given the goodly promise, which he shall see fulfilled on his resurrection, comparable to one on whom we have bestowed all the enjoyments of this life, but who on resurrection day will find himself among those that will be arraigned before us. Next translation. Is the one who sees the fulfillment of the goodly promise we gave him about the hereafter, in brackets, like the one we provided with worldly enjoyment, but who on the day of resurrection is summoned for punishment?
Yeah, so this is clear, but should have the study started. Are they equal, these two? And then should continue. That's the question. Is there, think about that. Are these two types of human beings equal, have the same destiny, have the same value? Is these lives at the same level? It's clear which one is the one who is successful. Is the one who should the day of judgment would be victorious. The one who would be liable of punishment would be reined in for questioning and punishment. That one is a loser, even if you enjoy short enjoyment of dunya. This obviously based on believing that there is a life after death, and based on that, clearly the one who is on guidance and who will find his reward in the afterlife is the one who is much more superior and much more worthy of a way of life to be on rather than the other one. Next ayah is very obvious.
وَيَوْمَ يُنَادِيهِمْ فَيَقُولُ أَيْنَ شُرَكَائِيَ الَّذِينَ كُنْتُمْ تَزْعُمُونَ. For on that day he will call unto them and will ask, where now are those beings or powers whom you imagine to have a share in my divinity? Next translation. On that day he will call them and say, where are my partners whom you used to claim?
Yeah. So partners here, the first one goes in my divinity, and they say, including, it should be said also, because people, non-Muslims generally and non-Arabs, but also Arabs now, unfortunately, over the centuries, divinity, they think about things like divine essence, like creating ex nihilo infinite power, but they don't include in that absolute sovereignty and lordship. But that's also part of divinity. So this, where are these partners? Where are the kings? Where are the rulers who claim that they have the right of legislation? Where are nations who claim they are sovereign and they have the right of legislation? Where is that, all of it? Obviously, nothing is available that day, or are gone. So that is important to keep that in mind always. Divinity here, the first one said divinity, yes, share in my divinity. Shuraka, that's excellent translation. Divinity and sovereignty, or lordship, so that to make it clear. Also, lordship is absolute lordship, obviously. Ultimate lordship is part of divinity by necessity, but many people do not get that in their mind clear and obvious. Okay, next ayah.
قال الذين حق عليهم القول ربنا هؤلاء الذين أغويناهم كما غوينا تبرعنا إليكم ما كان إيانا يعبدون.
تبرعنا إليك.
إليك ما كانوا إيانا يعبدون. First translation is, whereupon they against whom the word of truth shall thus stand revealed will claim, O our sustainer, those whom we caused to err so grievously, we but caused to err as we ourselves had been erring. We now disavow them before thee. It was not us that they worshipped. Next translation. Those against whom the charge will be provided will say, "Oh, our Lord, these are the people we led astray, just as we too were led astray. We declare our innocence to you. It was not us they were worshipping."
So this is the one who, now this shows that the shuraka, the shareholder in divinity, the previous does not mean divine essence necessarily, or things which have equal power to Allah, at least in some aspect, like the jinn, according to the belief of the mushrikeen, because nobody has equal power to Allah in any respect whatsoever. But what they believe, it includes also what we just said a few seconds ago, or share in lordship, in ultimate lordship. So these who show, obviously these beings are present and they are defending themselves, they say, we are not responsible. Yes, we were misguided, claiming to be having lordship, but these are the one misguided by us, but they were not worshipping us. They tried to get away, claiming, they just obeyed us. It was not worship. It was something, they worshipped something else. But this is obviously a fallacy argument, and the answer will come in the next ayahs, inshallah, in detail. But, and the second translation, as you just sustainer and Lord and so on. But this clarifies that those shuraka which should be in this announcement specifically, it doesn't mean these will share in abstract divinity like divine essence, or being which have real power equal in some aspect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, it's, the majority would be really those who claim to have divine legislation authority, those who claim to be lords, supreme lords, so they can enact and legislate according to their desire and according to their point of view, not according to what the revelation has allowed them to deduct from it. Like it applies to kings, it applies also to church councils, for example, who come with certain points of view, and this is binding, and this is essentially binding even on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they care anyone dissenting and so on. They ascribe lordship to themselves. The Quran clarified that in the later Medina Quran. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم. They appointed their monks, their scholars, and their monks as lords beside Allah, and the Messiah, the son of Maryam. So on equal footing. The first two are definitely not of divine essence, but they are the one who regard themselves are endowed with the power of legislation, of ultimate and of conclusive legislation. Not the power to derive from the revelation and make ijtihad. No, it's genuine legislation. They decide about things fundamentally by their own point of view and mind, and which is definitely not allowed. That's absolute sovereignty. That's the lordship. So the ayahs are really concerned with this type of people mostly, not with the divine essence. I mean, this ayah. The ayah in Surah Tawbah, toward the end of the Medina time, mentioned the two main parts of the categories. The first category mentioned first, the scribes and monks, Lord beside Allah, and the Messiah, the son of Maryam. And all of them are declared to be sharing in divinity. They were ordered to worship or enslave themselves to only one divine being. So those who have attributed to themselves share in lordship, or the right of supreme legislation, things like that, they are also, with this, automatically declaring them to be divine in some sense, in some additional deeper sense. For the Messiah, the son of Maryam, is no problem. They claim he's a divine essence. Definitely, they claim. He never said that, but they claim. But that goes without saying. Everyone agrees. That's the reason Adi ibn Hatim, when we came and heard the Messenger of Allah saying that, he said, Messenger of Allah, we never worship them, meaning these monks and scribes. And the Messenger of Allah knew that he is talking from the shadow point of view, and said, give him a similar, say, didn't they legislate to make halal haram and haram halal? So something is haram in the previous scripture. That's what has been revealed. They think they can abrogate it from their own mind, point of view and mind, and make it halal. And the opposite, something is halal, they can make it haram. Said, yes, they do that. That's their worship. That's their enslavement to them. That's what makes them divine. Not only divine essence like that. He did not object to Isa ibn Maryam. He knows that Isa ibn Maryam is divine in the belief of the Christian, and his own belief. He was still Christian at that time, or about to convert to Islam. But that one was surprising. People did not have that concept. It was not clear in people's mind that absolute sovereignty, lordship is exclusively should be only to a divine being. A non-divine being should not have any one of these at all. If you attribute that to them, you make him divine. In addition to the issue, because it should not have been attributed, because it creates contradiction in the definition of divinity. But this is deep, so the people have to be educated about it in more detail, later in Medina in more details. But here, if someone started in this ayah, we'll see even in Mecca, someone could deduce that, because these shuraka are invited there, and they say, we have misguided them as much as we have been also misguided. But they were not worshipping us. They're trying to get out of it. No, they were worshipping you because they attributed to you this lordship. Next ayah. It's very important to comprehend this point conclusively and completely.
Would permitting hereditary monarchy fall under this category as well?
All of them, whatever, military councils, all of these who think they have the right to legislate. And override the revealed law. Normally, in Islamic domain and Islamic countries, usually they claim, this is derived from the village, this is because of benefit and harm, and all these trickery and so on. They may say that. But in time past, at least, the monks and scribes under the Sheikh Council, for example, they didn't claim. They say they have a divine authority. God gave them this infallibility, protection. They speak in behalf of God, as if He's speaking through them.
Okay, next ayah. وقيل ادعوا شركاءكم فدعوهم فلم يستجيبوا لهم ورأوا العذاب لو أنهم كانوا يهتدون. And they will be told, call now unto those beings or powers to whom you were wont to ascribe a share in God's divinity, and they will call unto them for help. But those fake objects of worship will not respond to them, whereupon they will see the suffering that awaits them, the suffering which could have been avoided, if only they had allowed themselves to be guided. Next ayah, next translation. It will be said to them, call those partners. They will call them, but they will not respond to them, and they will see the punishment that awaits, if only they had followed our guidance.
So the first translation, second are good, obviously. The only problem is that they share in divinity. including lordship. That's if we say that, that's clear. So they call false idols, they don't exist, so there's nothing to respond to. They call, for example, Isa as the Son of God, a divine essence, or one of the persons of Trinity. There's nobody responding to them. Isa is a messenger, is a human being, full human, nothing divine in him. So nothing will respond. They call to these rulers and so on, come help us. We cannot help you. We are unable to help ourselves. How can we help you now? So nobody will respond. And then they will see the suffering coming and the catastrophe, and they regret, but it's too late. If they would have followed our guidance in dunya, they would not have been in this miserable state of affairs. Okay. Next.
ويوم يناديهم فيقول ماذا أجبتم المرسلين. And on that day he will call unto them and will ask, how did you respond to my message bearers? Next translation, on that day he will call them and say, how did you respond to my messengers?
Yeah. So that's the next call or the first call, because there's not clear which one is the first and the second one. Maybe simultaneously. Now we'll see what will the response. But this will be asked Yawm al-Qiyamah, because how the response to the messenger is fundamental. Some will say, we never received the messenger. These are to the side. They will not be questioned further. And some say, okay, we did response, we did not response, and so on. Everyone tried to get away of trouble at that moment. But in this situation, most people will be confused. They don't know what to say. The next I will clarify that.
فأميت عليهم الأنباء يومئذ فهم لا يتساءلون. But all arguments and excuses will by then have been erased from their minds, and they will not be able to obtain any helpful answer from one another. Next translation, they will be too dumbstruck on that day to ask one another for answers.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be in a state of shock because they never expected to be resurrected in the first place. Usually that's the case, or even if they believe in resurrection, they never expected to be facing this calamity in that form, and this question would be questioned. And then they will be dumbstruck, don't know what to answer, and they will not be even able to ask yourself, what did you really say? What did you say to the messenger? What happened there? So they were in a state of real dumbstruck, unable to talk. Next ayah.
فأما من تاب وعمل صالحا فعسى أن يكون من المفلحين. But as against this, anyone who repents and attains to faith and does righteous deeds may well hope to find himself among those who achieve a happy state in the life to come. Next translation. As for those who repent, believe and do good in this world, it is right to hope that they will be among the successful.
Repent here, meaning in the second version, the first one did not mention that they can repent. But repent here, recognize his error and start believing. So he has to, if he is not a believer before, then repenting meaning recognizing that you're an error. That's the first step before the positive step of starting believing. Recognize that's an error, but what is the opposite of error is the truth. This is the messenger, for example. Believe in him and follow him. And then, in principle, and then do as many good deeds and righteous deeds as possible, avoid as bad deeds as possible. Those may be the one who could be successful. Anyone else has no hope for success. Okay, next ayah.
Next ayah. وَرَبُّكَ يخلق ما يشاء ويختار ما كان لهم خيارة سبحان الله وتعالى أما يشركون. And thus it is thy sustainer creates whatever he wills, and he chooses for mankind whatever is best for them. Limitless is God in his glory, and sublimely exalted above anything to which they must ascribe a share in his divinity. Next translation. Your Lord creates whatever he wills and chooses. The choice is never theirs. May God be exalted in his glory and far above all they associate with him.
Yeah, so this is the second one is a little bit more general, chooses whatever he wills and creates what he wills, with this fine. But first one seems to be thinking that the divine choices will be only what's the best for the creation. This is another point of view. What he chooses is by his choice is best for the creation anyway. It's not the opposite, because there's nothing above Allah. There's no values above Allah. Allah is the absolute reference, absolute value. But people cannot get out of this mindset or frame of mindset. So he creates whatever he wants. That's most like an answer to some people saying, okay, why he did not from the beginning make everyone guided and so on, everyone guided. Because that's the fundamental choice made at the foundation of the world, that this first stage in the universe, at least, will be a testing universe. And that's done, dusted, finished. And this is from his point of view, the correct and the perfect choice, not anybody's else. And you have to accommodate to that. We discussed that many issues about how the issue of evil, suffering in the universe, all of this comes from the point of view thinking there's something abstract called absolute goodness, absolute love, which usually people come from a Christian background, which is used to justify why the Son of God or God comes and die on a cross for you. So it must be some kind of an infinite love and so on. This is nonsense. It doesn't exist. It's a bad imagination. Such an attribute to the divine does not exist, does not make any sense. Cannot be derived from a necessity of reason, nor from the scripture in any case. No way can be derived. So your Lord, that what has been decided, the foundation of the world, that it works like that, and it will be resulting like that in Yawm al-Qiyamah. And your Lord creates and chooses whatever he wants, and he is above and exalted and holy above all and glorified above all those who are attributed him as a partner. Because this may be such consideration may apply to partners, to finite beings, but not to the necessary existing unlimited being, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next ayah.
وَرَبُّكَ يَعْلَمُ مَا تُكِنُّ صُدُورُهُمْ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ. And thy sustainer knows all that their hearts conceal, as well as all that they bring into the open. Next translation, your Lord knows what their hearts conceal and what they declare.
Yeah, that's clear. So if you think, or if anyone thinks that what in the hearts or in the mind is not obviously clear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely, then you are mistaken. Because it cannot be known to anybody except to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was in the hearts. Even the angels, even the jinn cannot know what's there. But that's a fundamental fact. What's in the heart, what's in the mind is absolutely private. There's no way to get it out, to know it when it's happening, going on, and it's happening, except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other beings know it by Allah letting them to know and giving them certain tools to know, like by spying, by whatever means you can glean people's, but like, for example, from body language, from things like, you can get some ideas, but what you know is just maybe just hints on direction, but nothing in full detail and full knowledge. Full knowledge of what's going on is only privilege of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this is the deep, what's present in the mind and in the heart is absolutely private for you only, and by necessity accessible to the absolute sovereign subhanahu wa ta'ala, but nobody else. Next.
وهو الله لا إله إلا هو له الحمد في الأولى والآخرة وله الحكم وإليه ترجعون. For he is God, save whom there is no deity. Unto him all praise is due at the beginning and at the end of time. And with him rests all judgment, and unto him shall you all be brought back.
Yeah, that's clear. He's the beginning, and he's the ultimate purpose, and he's the ultimate direction. He's all including everything. The beginning, worthy of all praise, that any direction which is not ultimately leading to God is in vain, is going nowhere. It is a confusion, it is darkness. Only direction leading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making sense. And he is having the ultimate judgment, both in creation and digestation and moral values, etc. So it's saying creation and valuation. Valuation includes so-called moral values, spiritual values, legislation, and to whom all humans and all possibly all beings, even animals and so on, will be gathered together again. How complicated, we don't know, but this is a fundamental fact.
Next ayah. قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بدياء أفلا تسمعون. Say, have you ever considered this? If God had willed that there should always be night about you without break until the day of resurrection, is there any deity other than God that could bring you light? Will you not then listen to the truth? Next translation. Say, just think if God were to make the night continuous for you until the day of resurrection, what deity other than God could bring you light? Will you not listen?
Then it goes back to simple things after these general abstract things about that he is the beginning and the last and everything, with these very grand ideas. Now again, to about whom we are talking. About the one who designed the earth such a way that you have day and night in a balanced way. So you have the night for rest and so on, and the day for work and so on. But it could be otherwise. Look at the moon. One side of the moon is never facing the earth, for example. No, it's never facing the earth. So it will never see the earth, for example. Yes, it sees the sun. It has. But if the night would be persistent, let's say there's a planet which is not rotating around the sun, another sun facing toward the sun with one side, and the other side is in darkness, the creature, if there's any creature in the other side, they will be obviously hearing, they will develop hearing, like we have on Earth is a sample of that, by evolutionary development of some rodents, they developed into bats. They are blind, but they can hear, and they have excellent hearing. Even their hearing is so sophisticated that they can scan the space around them by ultrasound and fly by guidance ultrasound as if they are seeing very well. It's maybe not as sharp and precise like eyesight because the wavelength is big, but it's enough for all the living needed. And that's the reason that I said, don't you hear? You see, if it was dark, you would have hearing but no sight. Next ayah, we talk if the day is continuous, no night, then the ayah will conclude, أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ, don't you see? Here, don't you hear? Here, don't see. So connecting permanent night with hearing and permanent day with seeing. Okay? So which deity, which any of these alleged partners of Allah in divinity and lordship will be able to do otherwise? Show me one of them. Which one can do that? Bring anyone forward.
Are you saying that this is alluding to the creatures developing senses to compensate?
Yeah, that's it. This, because he talks about night continuously, and then at this level, don't you hear? Why use them to hear? And the other one who would say day is permanently with don't you see? Because if the night is permanently, then the only thing you could be expected from a creature is to be able to hear, but nothing to be seen because it's dark. Is a hint in that direction. It's not a scientific miracle. It's more something like that, showing the connection between hearing, sharp hearing, and blindness, or eye blindness, or something, to darkness. And no wonder that those rodents who took refuge deep in caves developed the hearing to an extreme level and then just became blind. They didn't need the seeing. Although they fly out sometimes, but they fly out at night. No difference between day and night. Actually, night is the best time for them to fly because they can catch flying insects and they can feed themselves on them. It's a very nice balance on it, very complicated balance. And the next ayah will address the other option. And asking which deity can bring you a night in which you can rest. So read the next ayah.
قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بليل تسكنون فيه أفلا تبصرون. Say, have you ever considered this? If God had willed that there should always be daylight about you without break until the day of resurrection, is there any deity other than God that could bring you the darkness of night wherein you might rest? Will you not then see the truth? Next translation. Say, just think, what if God should make daylight continuous for you until the day of resurrection? What deity other than God could bring you the night in which to rest? Will you not see?
Mhm. Exactly. As the same exactly, but now the night, the permanent light, and if that's if then else. But obviously, it's not very likely that there would be planets which have permanent. Although it's very well possible that one side will be dark, one side be light, and then obviously this creature in the dark will be depending on the one in the light side, which have plants and so on. Because in the dark side, plants will not prosper because you need the light for photosynthesis or something similar.
Could it also be that?
Mhm.
Could it also be that when you have perpetual light and you can't sleep, it messes your
Mhm.
circadian rhythms, which has
Yeah,
then
then you cannot rest, and then obviously for beings which are created and developed along with this night day situation, they will disappear, they will die, they will get extinct. Other beings will be there who do not need a circulation. Uh, so, could
circadian
be
rhythm.
well very developed. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, next ayah. ومن رحمته جعل لكم الليل والنهار لتسكنوا فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون. For it is out of his grace that he has made for you the night and the day, so that you might rest therein, as well as seek to obtain what you need of his bounty. And he gave you all this so that you might have cause to be grateful.
Grateful, yeah. Mhm.
Next translation. But out of his mercy he made the night and the day for you, so that you might rest and seek from his favor, and perhaps give thanks.
So you see the order layl and night, and then rest, and obviously the human body and human physical structure is obviously developed for this system. But the mind seems to be universal. It's a limited mind, not like a divine mind, but it seems to be addressing the mind now, not the body. And this mind was intended to develop or to be created down the road, not necessarily immediately. Maybe some have been created immediately. We don't know. At the foundation of the world, these are the main things, purpose of creation, the purpose of that. But that's for that to be active in bodies and so on, to be activated. Otherwise, it's potentially and not active. Potential and actual is potentially there, but to be activated, a universe or an earth with light and day and so on has to develop. So you have all this going back and forth between them. It's a bit philosophical, but anyway, this is so you may become grateful. So the existence of minds is independent of day and night. It could exist in something else. It's something abstract. That fits with some people saying that the souls have been created at the foundation of the world, but they were dormant or silent or something until they get activated. Anyway, this is more spiritual and philosophical consideration, which is irrelevant. They become really activated, and they enter in the registration of the code and will be resurrected in your judgment when they are blown in a body. When they're blown in a body, then this abstract potentiality becomes realized. Yeah, okay. So, but this is a little bit deeper than what's it. But I say, consider that you have day and night with this functionality. If it was not like that, you would have you could not have existed as physical being and as minds who are self-conscious by themselves. Would have been just potentiality. It would not have existed essentially. Would have been dead, the initial death. Okay. So that change and this one, and that Allah remind you to watch that so that you may appreciate Allah's favor on you and become thankful. and submit to him, enslave yourself to him, recognize him as the ultimate sovereign and the ultimate deity, the ultimate Lord, the only deity, the ultimate sovereign. Next ayah.
ويوم يناديهم فيقول أين شركائي الذين كنتم تزعمون. And on that day he will call unto those, and in brackets, that shall have been arraigned before his judgment seat, and will ask, where now are those beings or powers whom you imagine to have a share in my divinity? As translation, on the day he will call them and say, where are those you used to claim as my partners?
So he's back from, after mentioning something about dunya and the favor and day and night, goes back to the Yawm al-Qiyamah and another call. What's the difference between the call and the other call? The next ayah will clarify.
ونزعنا من كل أمة شهيدا فقلنا هاتوا برهانكم فعلموا أن الحق لله وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون. And they, in brackets, they will remain silent, for by then we will have called forth witnesses from within every community, and will have said unto the sinners, produce an evidence for what you have been claiming. And so they will come to understand that all truth is God's alone, and their false imagery will have forsaken them. Next translation. We'll pull out a witness from every nation and say, produce your evidence. They will then know that the truth belongs to God alone, and the gods they have invented have forsaken them.
Yeah, that is. So when you call them, where is my partner you claim, it's the same call earlier, but because the ayahs about day and night so were intervening, it's going back, say, in that day when the call was done, they will be dumbstruck, as the ayahs they said, and then we continue. So they remind you that we are just going back to the discussion of the call in Yawm al-Qiyamah. After being dumbstruck, what happens next? Then from each nation, from each community, from each group, from each structured unit of people, witnesses will be called forward to witness for that what they have been saying and bring their arguments if they have any arguments. But obviously they will not be witnessing for anything because there's nothing to be witnessed for. It doesn't exist, or that if it exists, it has expired and gone. It has no truth to have any lordship and divinity and absolute sovereignty, number one. And that all what Allah has ordered and commanded is the absolute truth which cannot be doubted. And next ayah will continue, I think, with the same scene, or I'll go to another scene. Let us see what happens next.
I'm going to go to Qarun now. Inna Qaruna kana min.
It's ended now. The vision of they have no argument. What happened? Allah doesn't mention punishment or anything or reward. Just remain silent there. Just beware of this miserable situation, which may end very badly. So just be warned. How it ends, other surahs will take care of it. Then it concludes the surah with the story of Qarun. That's one the nation of Musa. That's not the Qarun which you find in the Old Testament, which was a rich man, I think, in Babylon or something. That's not this one. Obviously, some Muslims say, oh, Muhammad got it wrong. He thought this is the time of Musa. But this is so stupid, it's not worth responding to. Let's clarify that. There's another Qarun in the time. And maybe it's even another name, because the one they refer to is called Croesus. Is it Croesus Qarun? Maybe, maybe not. Crown. The same when they made the issue with Haman. Haman was a minister at the time of the Persian Empire, was hostile to the Jews and so on. And they said Muhammad got it wrong and transplanted back to the time of pharaohs. But we know Haman is a genuinely Coptic old Egyptian word, meaning essentially the one in the position of the prime minister or the one who is running the public works. That's Haman. And the Quran shows clearly that he's responsible for construction, buildings, and so on. Haman. And seems to be a prime minister or major minister, because it's the time of Musa was their time of the maximum construction and working. The Egyptian empire was at its peak at that time. So that Haman is not that Haman. The same with this Qarun is not that Qarun. But Orientalists, especially in 19th and 18th century, are just simply stupid. It's this and biased. And their blunders, some of them are just will bring you to laugh, will make you laugh. By the way, I put a video with this Italian sister. She's a Muslim, and she done a PhD on psychology, Islamic psychology, and things like that. And she commenting about European points of view about Islam in the Middle East after that. And she mentioned some sample cases. It shows such ignorance and horror stories, unbelievable. It's just simply completely unbelievable. It's worth watching. It's in Enterprise. Watch it, inshallah. Okay. In blogging theology. Brother Paul Williams is introducing her for the second time. She was once.
Is she the one who used to be a nun or something?
Hmm?
Is she the one who used to be a nun?
No, this I don't think she was a nun. I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. Someone else is. It's just I put it yesterday, I think.
Okay. Next ayah. إن قارون كان من قوم موسى فبغى عليهم وآتيناه من الكنوز ما إن مفاتيحه لتنوع بالأسبة أولي القوة إذ قال له قومه لا تفرح إن الله لا يحب الفرحين. Now behold, Qarun was one of the people of Moses, but he arrogantly exalted himself above them, simply because we had granted him such riches that his treasure chests alone would surely have been too heavy a burden for a troop of men of 10 or even more. But when they perceived his arrogance, his people said unto him, Exult not in thy wealth, for verily God does not love those who exult in things vain. Next translation. It says Korah was one of the. So this one's Safikaskas. He says Korah was one of Moses' people, but he exploited them. We allowed him to have treasures, the keys to which would burden even a band of strong men. When his people told him, "Don't gloat. God does not like the exultant."
Yeah. So maybe he found in the Old Testament time of Musa someone called Korah or something, and maybe then he identified with that person. That may be good sense. So it's Korah, not Croesus or something like that. We have to check the Old Testament for that. That's not relevant. There's a man who's just Qarun. The Quran translated as Qarun. And this man has such a wealth that only the treasures, because at that time wealth was in gold and silver. There were no paper money. So you couldn't have it except in big treasury and so on. And all obviously locked away with keys and things like that. So that the keys themselves, just the keys, to carry the keys, you need a group of strong men carrying the keys alone. So many treasures he had, enormous treasures. And he was jubilant and arrogant, arrogantly jubilant. What was the word used by the second translation? He was bloating, huh?
Gloating and exultant.
Gloating, yeah. He was overjoyed, jubilant with his wealth in an arrogant way. In Arabic, it's farih. Don't be happy or don't be pleased with that. No. The word pleased in Arabic is quite neutral. It can be in that direction, can be in the normal goodness direction, for good reasons. But they try to find it a translation which fits the context. So don't be jubilant, don't be exclamating over pleasure or something like that. But here, because of arrogance, because Allah does not love those who are happy in arrogance and oppressing the others on this ground. By the way, before we continue the story, he was one of the main important personalities. Obviously, he belongs to the people of Musa. He's most likely from the tribes, but he joined obviously the leadership elite of. So he became part of the government of Pharaoh, because in Surah Ghafir, which will come later, inshallah, to it says, ولقد أرسلنا موسى وأخاه وهارون إلى فرعون وهامان وقارون فقالوا ساحر كذاب. So he was sent, Musa comes to Fir'aun وهامان وقارون. This is the only place in the Quran besides this is this. We can check. I think there's only two places. So he was sent there. So meaning Qarun is one of the authorities. So let's say he's the chief of the Israelite, and he's supporting obviously and cooperating with the elite of Egypt. In oppressing them and enslaving them, and the price for and the reward for that he became from the ruling elite. Yeah, he joined the government, shared in power. and got the reward for that, obviously, riches and money and wealth and so on. And obviously, Pharaoh and Haman adopted him because of riches and money and so on. This is supportive for the state. Yeah, the same old story since ancient time. It's the same. The one in power need the capitalists, the rich people, the aristocrats to be supporting him because keeping them happy and interacting with them and having them with him on board, strengthening his power. So he has the power. He can command soldiers, but he has the money to pay the soldiers because you can't command the soldiers ad infinitum with no money. So besides living taxes and so on, it's good to have the capitalist class on your side. Yeah. And the aristocrats, the money owner, the money launderer, the money maker, the money lender, they should be on your side. That will strengthen your government, strengthen tyrannical government, not the government to serve the people. That does not need that. There's a characteristic for the government, for the people, for the purpose of the people, serving the people from a government, for the rich class, for the controller, for Epstein class nowadays. Anyway, we put to upside that time from time to time to see how it realizes in history of various forms. But if you go dig deeper, it's the same thing. It's the same fundamental structure. So this man is so important that Musa and Harun were sent by name to Pharaoh, Haman, and the ministers and the administrative body. Pharaoh is the sovereign, the legislator. At that time, there were no parliament. He is the legislator. So the legislator is the number one, the executive branch, Haman, heading that, and the capitalist class, and the money people represented by Harun, which happened at that time to be from the people of Musa. So he's not from the genuine Egyptian, he is more from these slaves and immigrants. So this is Harun. Back to the story. So the people told Harun, don't be arrogantly jubilant about your wealth. You should treat the wealth as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And don't think because you are excellent in money management and intelligence that you made the money. Allah made the money for you. Don't fool by this. There's so many other conditions have to meet together to make you rich. It's not only your intelligence and your skills and your starting capital. No, there are, especially if you have a starting capital. Starting capital is not yours, from your parents or someone else. And that all is not from you within your power. All of it is under Allah's power. Your intelligence and your management is only a small portion of that. So don't be over jubilant. And they continued advising him. And they continued advising him. What did they say? Next ayah.
وابتغي فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنسى نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغي الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين. Seek instead, by means of what God has granted you, the good of the life to come, without forgetting withal thine own rightful share in this world, and do good unto others, as God has done good unto thee, and seek not to spread corruption on earth, for verily God does not love the spreaders of corruption. Next translation. Seek the hereafter with what God has given you, but do not neglect your share of this world, but do good as God has done to you. Do not seek to cause corruption in the land, for God does not like those who spread corruption.
So that's a good advice. First of all that what Allah given to you should be devoted for akhirah in the first place, because this is the eternal one. But don't forget your share in dunya. Does not mean that you don't go out with the best clothing in a motorcade. You can have that. That's no problem. And you could be pleased with that, but not arrogantly or looking down on other people. No. We say, just I have wealth, I have to show it. People have to show that Allah bestowed on me favor. I'm pleased with Allah's favor on me. That's a good attitude. There's nothing wrong in that. And since you have obviously more than what you need in dunya, this man is having tons. He has treasures that a group of strong men will not be able to carry the keys, let alone the treasures themselves. There must be in fortification and buildings. Massive. There's plenty of that. Definitely some of it had to be reinvested and so on. There's no doubt about that, to keep the wealth and develop it further. Yeah, no doubt about that. But give it further. give it further as charity, give it further supporting for the needy, the orphans, and so on. Or give it even as loans, non-usurious loans. So you get reward for that. As a matter of fact, there's a hadith that Jibreel told Messenger of Allah, if someone gives 10 dirham as a charity, he gets 10 hasana. If he gives it as a loan, a non-usurious loan, to someone, he gets 15 hasana. Messenger will say, how come that for a loan he gets 15 and for, say, because if he gives it at a loan, the man who took it knows it has to be returned, so he'll work it. He will not consume it and it's gone. He will work on it, develop it further. Mostly, there will be cases which will fail. We know that. Develop it further and return it. It is now, instead of the 10 dirham, they become 15. He can lend to more people and it will work. You see? So he gets more reward because the money will work. You see, Islam encourages investment and developing wealth and creating wealth, but without going into arrogance, blowing yourself. So this hadith, I didn't check it out and say I think it's good. But anyway, it shows that giving also a loan to the others, non-usurious loan. Less similar to that is participating with the others, supporting them, giving them, and making with them, like, for example, mudaraba, sharika, and so on. That's ihsan al-akhari. So they can get out of the state of being non-money maker and just loan dependent, becoming more independent, and so on. So do that. Be charitable to you as Allah has been charitable to you. And most importantly, because he's arrogant and he's oppressive to his own people, most likely he's also supportive for their enslavement and harsh treatment. Because that's what fasad. Fasad meaning usually torture, killing boys and keeping women, like Pharaoh was doing. Most likely he's in agreement with that. He's or partly at least. They say, okay, we kill some of the boys and keep some for further procreation and things like that. They make it a more organized way. That's all fasad, you know. That's absolutely no. Because, and they conclude, Allah does not love the corruption, the corruptors, the one who corruption. Corruption, he means this torture, oppressing the people, killing them, punishing them, flogging them, and so on, including killing babies and so on. That's the extreme form of corruption. That's all is called corruption. And they conclude Allah does not the corruptors. That's at least that minimum should be abstained from absolutely. So what is his response? Let's see what's his response.
قال إنما أوتيته على علم عندي أولم يعلم أن الله قد أهلك من قبله من القرون من هو أشد منه قوة وأكثر جمعا ولا يسأل عن ذنوبهم المجرمون. First translation.
He responded, he said,
answered he, this wealth has been given to me only by virtue of the knowledge that is in me. Did he not know that God had destroyed the arrogant of many a generation that preceded him, people who were greater than he in power and richer in what they had amassed, but such as they are lost in sin may not be asked about their sins.
Gotcha.
Next translation. His answer was, I was able to obtain this wealth because of the knowledge I have. Did he not know that God had destroyed many generations before him who had greater power than he had and greater wealth? But the criminals will not be asked about their transgressions. Will not even be asked about their transgressions.
That's good. They will be punished right away because it's very clear and there's no need for long discussion about these cases. So his answer is clear. It's not. You claim it's Allah gave it to me. No. Nobody gave it to me. Because I'm knowledgeable, I'm capable of doing it by my own thinking and organization. Nobody gave me anything. I created it by myself. So he's almost thinking of himself almost like a creator, a divine being, of utmost influence. And the Quran responds directly. Didn't he know? Most likely he knew from Moses and his own people's stories about what happened to Ibrahim and his and the major kings of Babylon and the previous kings of Egypt. Some of them were very supreme, and many of them were much richer than him. And many of the pharaohs were more powerful than him, and so on. And they were destroyed. So he didn't ponder about this. He thinks his power is unlimited. He can challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah steps in to save the people. So because the people were almost taken away by this kind of argumentation, and some of the people at least, they were admiring this. So this is really the right way of life. Accumulating wealth and being arrogant and enjoying wealth and don't care about what Musa and the revelation says and so on. So Allah Ta'ala steps in miraculously and gives them a hard lesson. Next ayah will show that.
فخرج على قومه في زينته قال الذين يريدون الحياة الدنيا يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون إنه لذو حظ عظيم. First translation, so he went forth before his people in all his pomp, and those who cared only for the life of this world would say, "Oh, if we but had the like of what Qarun has been given. Verily, with tremendous fortune, with tremendous good fortune is he endowed." Next translation, so he came out in his splendor before his people. Those who desired the worldly life said, "How we wish to have been given like what Korah had been given. He is truly a most fortunate man."
So that's the common people who thinks wealth is the meaning of life, accumulating wealth, become a millionaire, billionaire is the ultimate purpose. These people are the model, like most Americans nowadays. Models are Elon Musk, this and this, because of their wealth. They are even atheists. They say, "Look, what's the guy, the one of
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett is an atheist. So see, well, he's a billionaire. You see, even we atheists, we have even billionaires under ourselves. They regard that as an evidence how good to be an atheist and things like that. So the Israelites at the time were as bad or nearly as bad as this. So they were wishing to have the same thing, because it's a great fortune, it's a great luck, because they're blinded from the repercussion in Yom Al-Qiyamah. They are not very well aware. They may believe nominally, but really, is that present in their mind and their action? No, it is not. Then Allah steps in and do the saving. So this ayah is just describing how he was obviously going from home or palace to the royal palace or the government seat in all splendor and in a motorcade or in a horsecade or something like that. And the people were just saying, "Oh, we wish we have these billions and these millions and things like that." Then the divine response came to save the people from these bad ideas. Next, فخسفنا.
وقال الذين أوتوا علما.
Not yet. Now the other one said, advising them, don't be fooled by this splendor of dunya. وقال الذين
أوتوا العلم ويلكم ثواب الله خير لمن آمن وعمل صالحا ولا يلقاها إلا الصابرون. But those who had been granted true knowledge said, "Woe unto you! Merit in the sight of God is by far the best for any who attains to faith and does what is right. But none save the patient in adversity can ever achieve this blessing." Next translation. But those who had been given knowledge said, "You are wrong. God's reward is better for him who believes and does good deeds. Only those with great patience will obtain this."
Yeah, the people who have endurance and resist this temptation, this passing temptation for a short time, they will attain this great reward for good deeds. But you have to have resistance. It is not easy. It is not automatic. You have to do some internal effort, some fighting against your own desire and so on. Otherwise, you will not get to do good deeds, because you will be defocused. You will be looking away from akhirah, and you will not be focusing on that or thinking about it, and your life will be gone in accumulating 1 million or above 1 billion above a billion, or whatever it is, and all will be gone in vain at the end. All will evaporate. As the Messiah say, to the grave, a man is carried 3 follow him, and only 1 remains, and the rest go back, or 4. His works go with him, if he has any. Obviously, some, like Warren Buffett, almost has nothing. And his family, and his wealth, home, and so on. I saw once a Hindu, someone died next to the street, and he was looking from the window. They're having white horses with a carriage and so on. That's part of the wealth, to get the coffin to the cemetery and so on, or to the crematory and so on. And all of this go together there. And then only his good deeds, if he has any, stay with him. The family goes back to divide the wealth. And the wealth is back. Even the symbol is back. And they will just say, alhamdulillah, he's gone. Now we can enjoy the money for free. Only the good deeds remain, if you have any. Nothing else is remaining. I think nothing else is remaining. It's gone. It's finished. So that's what will happen. That you have to have insight, and you have to have endurance to remind yourself from time to time to not to fall in this trap. This needs patience, endurance, sabirin. This reward will be only for the sabirin, who can endure the temptation and survive the temptation. Now Allah, I was in a hurry. Now Allah steps in and saves the majority of the people by giving them a living example. But Allah has not had the obligation to show that. But in that case, for the people of Musa at that time, that happened.
فخسفنا به وبداره الأرض فما كان له من فئة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان من المنتصرين. First translation. And thereupon we caused the earth to swallow him and his dwelling, and he had none and nothing to succor him against God, nor was he of those who could succor themselves. Next translation. And we caused the earth to swallow him and his house. There was no one to help him against God, nor could he help himself.
Yeah, that's as clear. He obviously has a house. His dar is, I think, bigger than house. Most like he has like a fortification or a village or a castle. Because dar is wider than house. House is bait, so he has a dar. He has maybe most like a fortification or a palace, similar to the palace of Pharaoh, slightly smaller, because you have to take care for these niceties when you belong to such an empire like Pharaoh. So slightly smaller, but all treasures are there. Everything is there. It's gone. Now the Egyptian claim that there's a lake called Buhayrat Qarun, is allegedly that's the where he has been swallowed there. Allahu Alam. Maybe it's just this place. Maybe just people connected stories in their imagination. We don't know. If it is that place, maybe it's worth digging. Maybe there's at least some gold is there. The gold they sell will not rust. Silver may have rusted considerably, but gold is still there. Allah, we don't know. But that's gone. Where it is, we don't know, but it may be this Buhayrat Qarun, the lake of Qarun in Egypt, allegedly where that has happened. And nobody could help him against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very simple, just order the earth to swallow him. It's gone. Bye-bye and salama. And that's it. That's it. Neither we find anyone supporting him against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor he was be able to be victorious by Muntasir, by himself, achieve victory by his own power, because there's no power for victory and no power to withstand and resist such a khasf of earth swallowing. Earth swallowing is one of the worst things could happen to anybody. Imagine, Allah forbid, you are walking and suddenly the earth below you gives way. You're down. This happens in small scale, like for example, in New York, a couple of years ago, there was some weak point, and then I think one car fell, but it was not deep enough, so I think they saved the man there in the car. He must have or the woman, he must have the shock of his life, the driver there. But sometimes it's so deep that nobody can find anybody. It's gone. So that's the worst will come. There's no way you can do anything about that. It's gravitation the earth has given. There's no way you can, and you can expect it. It's just crack and it's gone. Sometimes whole city parts as well, like the recent earthquake in Turkey. Was that 2021 or 2022? The big earthquake, which such a big gap, which is now almost like a river size. Definitely several houses and blocks went down there. Some of them untraceable, some of them bits of it are there. Some people could recover, some are unrecoverable. So this is the worst which could happen. to be taken away suddenly from below your feet. Now the people start, the one who were there before that, they will say, oh, alhamdulillah, that we are not punished this way. And they repented. Next ayah clarify that, inshallah.
وأصحاب الذين تمنوا مكانه بالأمس يقولون ويكأن الله يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء من عباده ويقدر لولا أمن الله علينا لخسف بنا ويكأنه لا يفلح الكافرون. And on the morrow, those who but yesterday had longed to be in his place exclaimed, alas, for our not having been aware that it is indeed God alone who grants abundant sustenance, or gives it in scant measure unto whichever he wills of his creatures. Had not God been gracious to us, he might have caused the earth to swallow us too. Alas, for our having forgotten that those who deny the truth can never attain to a happy state. I'll keep to that translation. It's straightforward anyway. So,
second translation.
Okay, one second. Second translation.
Yeah, second.
And those who had wished in the previous day to be in his place said, as if God gives abundantly or sparingly to whomever he wishes of his servants. Oh, if God had not been gracious to us, he would have caused the earth to swallow us too. Alas, those who deny the truth will never succeed.
So they were believing really that he achieved that by his own powers and so on. Now they recognize, no, it is what the knowledgeable people said is true. It's Allah who gives abundantly or sparingly, testing the one with the abundance with his abundance, the one with sparingly with his sparingly. Everyone is tested one way or another, different ways, different types of sabr are required. Actually, maybe the sabr, the endurance, the patience for the temptation of wealth is maybe more demanding and harsher than the temptation of poverty, as we see in the world generally. Temptation of wealth is more devastating and killing than the temptation of poverty. That's very visible. You can see it everywhere. You can see it everywhere. So that's for testing. Everyone is testing. So don't be fooled. Don't think it's yes, you have to contribute something there sometimes, but sometimes you don't contribute anything at all. You just inherit. And the inheriting is so massive, you just need that it will continue investing by itself and run by companies and so on. You don't need even to move a finger, and still the money is coming. So completely nothing from your side, except that you happen to be born from this father or from this mother. That's it, nothing else. So it can be from this extreme to something which is almost everything is the earning of the man, like Rockefeller, the father. He essentially started and established everything bit by bit, yeah. But still, his conditions and his historic moment and availability of things and so on, this is more fundamental than his working and his intelligence capabilities. So, and then they recognize now the error and they appreciate Allah's favor and say, oh, if Allah would not have been gracious to us and kind, he would have been taken also order the earth to swallow us. What's the difference between us and him? He's the mischief maker, and we are the one admiring and wish to be joining him. So we deserve the same punishment, but we were spared by grace of Allah Ta'ala. Indeed, those who are unthankful to Allah, those who are disbeliever, they will never succeed. They will never attain to a happy state. Next ayah.
Okay. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين.
Yeah.
As for that happy life in the hereafter, we grant it only to those who do not seek to exalt themselves on earth, nor to spread corruption, for the future belongs to the God conscious. Next translation: we grant the home in the hereafter to those who do not desire superiority on earth or to spread corruption.
Yeah,
for the best outcome is for those who are mindful of God.
Yeah. So that's the fundamental fact that's coming to Allah subhanahu on that. So the next life, the good part of it, obviously nobody wants to have Jahannam, obviously. But real eternal life is that for those who do not want to have superiority, just power and control. Some people want like kings and so on. They want power and control, just mere being dominant over others. Instead of being humble and equal to others, they want to be just dominance without necessarily doing corruption. They may be very just and ruling according to the laws they enact, or even any other law, but they want to be dominant. They don't want to submissive. They prefer to be in a position of charge and control rather than to being a common man who is a member of society equal to anybody else. This desire to dominance is dangerous and deadly. Or the one who wants corruption, the one who wants to rape, to steal money, to kill other people, and so on. So either being in power position for exercise power just for mere control, enjoyment, the power by itself. So they want to be like divine, somehow elevate themselves to a divine level, because the divine level is the supreme, dominant over everything by necessity of his being. So you want to share of that. That's the only things in divinity which or one of the few things you should never think to share, because it is devastating. It contradicts that you are a created finite being. You have to be humble. You have to be slave. And the other ones, they want to control, but also to get access to money, to women, if they have sexual another orientation, to have boys and so on, by force, by raping, by force, by stealing, that's corruption. Either this or this, both of that. The al-akhir is neither for one of these two. It's for the one who are humble. As the Mashallah say, Allah had revealed to me that you have to humble yourself so that nobody transgress against anybody and nobody looks down on anybody else. You look to everyone as equal to yourself, respect him and humble yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and look at everybody else as equal to you. If any, then you may be less than everyone. So he may be superior to me something else. I should not be regard myself superior to anybody else and think else. If such an idea comes to mind, that's a satanic idea. He may be superior in other aspects which I don't know. Just don't try to exaggerate yourself above others. So that's the comment. What else is the surah ended, or still some ayahs?
We got about half a page left, which can finish the end, inshallah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. Also, the attribute for the facade, the people who want to be ulun, it sounds a lot like a narcissistic type of personality, which is quite common amongst tyrants. Yeah. Okay. Next ayah. من جاء بالحسنة فله خير منها ومن جاء بالسيئة فلا يجزى الذين عملوا السيئات إلا ما كانوا يعملون.
It's another fundamental rule, yeah. Translate.
Whosoever shall come before God with a good deed will gain further good therefrom. But as for any who shall come with an evil deed, know that they who do evil deeds will not be requited with more than the like of what they have done. Next translation. Whoever comes on the day of judgment with a good deed will have a better reward, and whoever comes with an evil deed will be punished only for what they have done.
Exactly. So that's the general principle. For bad deeds, only punishment for the deed as it is, according to the measures of Allah, which are absolute. That's absolute divine justice. Only as the crime deserves. How to measure that? Allah is the one who is measure, and his measure is absolute, yes, because he's the perfect, and his knowledge is comprehensive. So he knows exactly how to measure things which sometimes we cannot evaluate and measure. He knows how to rank things completely and exactly. But for good deeds, they may be ranked, definitely, but he will give more. And some hadith explain that in various, for example, hadith says that if someone intends to do a good deed, but he doesn't do it, he has the intention and start preparation, but then at the last moment he hesitates or something, then we give him one good deed, even if he doesn't do it. But if he does it, I'll give him 10 good deeds, equal 10 times the reward. And if he decides to make a bad deed and then he stops from doing it, then I'll give him a good deed. So even stopping from doing a bad deed is good. So you get a reward for it. And if he still does it, then we'll give him only one bad deed, one negative point. So in the case of negative, divine justice. In the case of positive, divine grace and bestowance. And in other places say tenfold to 70 to 700 to many folds according to whatever the situation and the type of action it is. So that's the way it works with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But definitely, any bad deed will be measured accordingly, according to measure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is absolutely just, nobody can object to. And then you will get more, much more than what you deserve for that. And nothing will be all the favor of Allah on you for dunya and so on. The famous story of the man of the pomegranate. A man passed once from the previous nation, as the Messenger of Allah says, on a valley, and he found like a cave, a nice cave, with a small running rivulet and a pomegranate tree there, which seems to be having plenty of pomegranate. And she said, why I seclude myself there and just devote myself to rituals and so on, praying at night and fasting at day and so on. And they have water, I have one pomegranate. That's more than enough for me. So he did that for many, many years and died. And then Allah ordered him, done so many prayers and so on, enter him in paradise by my mercy. Someone said, Lord, I was struggling 50, 60 years praying at night and so on. And I wish to be entered by my own deed and reward for my work. So your work, these 40 years, are not worth the water which is running for you for 60 years, and the pomegranate tree, which is, in that case, miraculously, every day you have one pomegranate, even out of season. How much is that? Let us scale it. So he was scaled, and we balanced it with what I gave to you, that's what you offered to me. So he balanced it. The balance went against him. So he said to the angel, take him to the hellfire. He said, my Lord, by your mercy, I have this. Say, I told you from the beginning, it's only by my mercy you enter paradise, you go to paradise. a hard lesson. In a time where obviously lessons are, obviously this is metaphorically or not, is a lesson for us, not for that man. That man, khalas, he sealed his destiny in the good side, minimum level, but it's the good side. But that story shows how it works. So even all these good deeds, Allah will tell you, you did it with muscles I created for you. I did it with this. You have eyesight. You have all of these I gave to you for free. Whatever you do, if you want to compensate me, you will never be able to compensate you. That's the meaning of that. So everything is extra. Everything is extra. In addition to that, that's given for free. I gave it up for you, not going to ask about it. But if you insist, it must be for your deeds. Not. Yeah, your deeds are the cause for the reward, but they are not a compensation. Yeah, for that, because of that, what you are doing, not in compensation or balance of that, what you do. No, you will never be able to balance Allah's favor on you. He started with enormous favor anyway. Nobody can compensate whatsoever. Forget about it. It's impossible. It is simply impossible. Free gift, absolutely free. Absolutely free. So that's the good deeds and the bad deeds. Next ayah.
Before I go, is that the argument in terms of punishment being like for like? The argument for non-eternal hell by Ibn Taymiyyah?
Yeah, that's one of it. That's one of them. Yeah, and many other things. Yeah, also hints from the Quran. Also, many hints from the Quran. Yeah.
Okay. إن الذين فرض عليك القرآن لرادوك إلى معاد قل ربي أعلم من جاء بالهدى ومن هو في ضلال مبين. Verily, O believer, he who has laid down this Quran in plain terms, making it binding on thee, will assuredly bring thee back from death to a life renewed. Say unto those who reject the truth, my sustainer knows best as to who is right guided and who is obviously lost in error. Next translation. He who ordained the Quran for you, Prophet, will see you back to your destination. Say, my Lord best knows he who brought the guidance and he who is clearly lost.
Okay, so there's two translations. The first one prefer the point of view that is addressing everyone, every human being, which has obliged to receive the Quran and understand it, that you will be returned back to the day of judgment. You will not be expiring worthless at the end of your life. And then the Lord knows who is the more guided and the one who is lost. That's the no one translated. But this, I think, the minority point of view. The majority point of view is this is addressed to the Messenger of Allah, because they say this was revealed when he started the journey towards Medina. Allah classified him, say, Inna الذي فرض عليك القرآن لردك إلى معاد. The one who obliged you to broadcast the Quran, bring it to the people, will return you back to Mecca. So promising him, you will go back to Mecca. Don't worry. You will go and you will be victorious. And Allah knows who is guided and who is misguided. I am more inclined to the second point of view, which indicates that this ayah, it could be the ayah had been revealed earlier. The Prophet did not know what's ma'ad and so on, and then was revealed once again in the travel. Maybe that's what caused Muhammad Asad, the first translation, to be hesitating, because many people do not recognize that the same ayah could be recited the second time, a third time, in another occasion for another application, which has various applications. So it could have been at the beginning like that, and the Messenger of Allah, if he understood it to everyone or to him, he said, "Wush ma'at, maybe akhir." And then in the immigration, again, as the many reports claim, that on the way when he departed and escaped Quraysh, Allah comforted him. Don't think you are going forever and you will not be back to Mecca. You will be back to Mecca, and it will be conquered, inshallah, in due course. And this was decided long ago, by the way. Even the Old Testament is clear that I think in Isaiah, that the one from Qaidar will be reconquering the city with 10,000 of the holy men. That's the 10,000 army of the, if we interpret that as applied to Muhammad. So this general line of history was already decided at that time. So don't worry, you will be coming back. Whatever it is to everyone who is obliged to receive the Quran and apply it and live according to it, will be returned back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yawm al-qiyamah, to the one who obliged him to receive the Quran. And then Allah knows who is guided and who is misguided. So don't worry about that. Just make sure that you will be under the guided. Or it is addressing the Messenger of Allah specifically. Next ayah. Next ayah.
1 second. وما كنت ترجو أن يلقى إليك الكتاب إلا رحمة من ربك فلا تكونن ظهيرا للكافرين. First translation. Now, as for thyself, O believer, in brackets, thou couldst never foresee that this divine writ would one day be offered to thee, but it did come to thee by thy sustainers' grace. Hence, never uphold those who deny the truth of guidance, deny the truth of divine guidance. Next translation. You, Prophet, could not have expected that the book would be conveyed to you, but it is a mercy from your Lord, so do not back up the unbelievers.
So the first translation, again, insisting in his point of view that's addressed to every believer, to all human beings. And the second one is continue with his theory that's addressed to the Prophet. I'm inclined to the second translation anyway, but in any case, the meaning is clear. The first interpretation is possible, and the second is more preferable, but possible, and more preferable. So it will not. I think it's the second interpretation is stronger here, because you were not hopeful that you will receive a book for. So it's almost certainly addressing the Prophet ﷺ. Because the rest of humanity, many people are, the moment they become conscious, they hope that something comes from God to them and so on. So it is not so like either through a prophet or something like that. Many people expect our life must have a sense. God must have communicated something either directly to us. He has not. Maybe through something, and they start searching for books and scripture. So I think the second interpretation is getting stronger by the second ayah. Yeah. So it's the messenger saying, because the messenger was never hopeful. He never came in his mind that he would receive a revelation or he will be chosen. It was never in his mind or the expectation whatsoever. It was completely out of his world of as we know from his seerah, until he was confronted by the angels in the cave of Hira. Nothing there indicate that he was expecting anything whatsoever at all. Nothing. No indication whatsoever. Next.
ولا يصدنك عن آيات الله بعد إذ أنزلت إليك وادعو إلى ربك ولا تكونن من المشركين. First translation, and never let them turn thee away from God's messages after they have been bestowed upon thee from on high. Instead, summon all men to thy sustainer, and never be of those who ascribe divinity to aught but him. Next translation, and never let them turn you away from God's revelations after they have been revealed to you. Instead, invite people to your Lord. Never be one of those who associate others with God.
It's clear also this thing that really is addressed to the Prophet himself. And by conclusion, the rest of humanity. That meaning is clear. So stick to the revelation. Don't let anyone divert you from him. And don't be, what the ayah says again?
ولا يصدنك عن ولا يصدنك عن آيات الله بعد إذ أنزلت إليك وادعو إلى ربك ولا تكونن من المشركين.
So continue, don't let them divert you from this. You are now out of Makkah. That's if we address the Prophet. You are out of Makkah, but they don't let them, even if you are out, divert you from that what I revealed to you, and don't join the mushrikeen. Continue the same system, even if you are expelled out of Makkah, or if you, or he was not expelled actually. It's wrong to say he fled, but he was ordered to leave, because if they expelled him by force, they would have been destroyed according to the old well-established Sunnah. So he immigrated by himself. The same like Ibrahim, he immigrated on his own. They didn't expel him. That's the reason they remained as they are, and they were never destroyed. Okay, next ayah.
Next ayah. This is the last ayah of this surah. We'll finish there, inshallah. ولا تدعوا مع الله إلها آخر لا إله إلا هو كل شيء حالك إلا وجهه
كل شيء
كل شيء حالك إلا وجهه له الحكم وإليه ترجعون. And never call upon any other deity side by side with God. There is no deity save him. Everything is bound to perish save his eternal self. With him rests all judgment, and unto him shall you all be brought back. Next translation. And do not invoke another God besides God. There is no God except him. All things will perish except his face. Judgment belongs to him, and to him you will be returned.
The second one, if you said don't call any deity beside, there's only one God, is better with a capital G. But before that, the other things should be called deity. Is better. Distinguish from God with small g and big G. But that's okay. In English, you can make it with a small g and capital G and make a distinction. Yeah, so you're affirming the fundamental aspect, which we said, fundamental one. There is no other divinity whatsoever, or supreme lordship. And there's only one of this category, nothing else. And he has the ultimate judgment on all either created and normative issues, and to him everything returns, and everything should be directed in ultimate conclusion and calculation. Is a final destination for everything. Next.
That's it. That's finished. Next surah is Surah Al-Ankabut.
Read the ayah once more.
ولا تدعوا مع الله إلها آخر لا إله إلا هو كل شيء خالق إلا وجهه له الحكم وإليه ترجعون.
Is it كله or كله?
Sorry.
Sheikh.
كل شيء.
I was wondering because it should not be كله. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's finished that surah.
And
so
we'll stop here, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. So the next surah will be Surah Al-Ankabut, starting from the first ayah.
The spider, yeah.
Okay, so we'll kick off the question and answers now, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay, so some questions have come last minute. If anyone wants to unmute, raise your hands in the chat, and I'll in the participant section, and I'll unmute you.
Okay, so first question. It's a bit of a long one. So I saw that the professor in his Arabic broadcast gives some advice to different groups in different countries, like Ansarullah in Yemen or Taliban in Afghanistan. For some context, in Somalia, we are entering a new stage, and it's very difficult to navigate going forward. On one side, we have a country governed by a federal system, and there seems to be issues when it comes to power sharing between the FGS in Mogadishu and regional states run by different personalities. Some have former Islamist backgrounds dating to Hizbul Islam and such parties like the president of Jubaland, and some backed by tribal affiliations and clans. Many Somalis say that this federal system doesn't suit us since we have a common religion, language, and culture, and that this system is just heading to further fragmentation. I think that the professor remembers the 2006 invasion by Ethiopia of Somalia, when the ICU, Islamic Courts Union, were operating many personalities from the ICU joined the ARS, that's Alliance for the Relocation and Restoration of Somalia, and many ended up holding posts in the TFG, Transitional Federal Government. And we had some elements of the ICU, like Sheikh Sharif becoming the president. The issue we have, Doctor, is in Somalia. Today we have Al-Shabaab, these Khawarij who are busy running their own Imara in some southern states, groups like Islah, Ikhwan, traditional armed Sufi groups like AWSJ, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, tribal militias, autonomous regional state forces, federal government forces, foreign forces, there for their own interests like US AFRICOM at Halan base, Turkish Turkcom, who have their largest overseas base, and there are based there and are actively now engaging in oil extraction in a very exploitative deal they entered with the FGS. What is your advice in this type of situation? Because the time is nigh for a well-structured party to appear there with the failures of Islam and other Salafi Jihadi or other Salafi groups like Ittihad al-Islami.
Advice to whom? Because
to people of Somalia in this
yeah.
situation.
So advice to whom? Advice to nobody, or to certain groups, or to all of them?
Well, to everyone, I guess. I mean, he hasn't specified that in the question, and I can't really get hold of him to
advise the one who have Islamic direction, at least, like Hizb Islami, like Islah and so on, and Shabab. They have to meet and discuss what are their grievances, what's going on, and come to a common ground. As I suggest, to read our books and so on. If say the time is tight, it will ever be tight. The situation like this started in the 90s. We are almost 30 years in this situation. Since Ziad Barre is gone, it is off and on like that, with warlords and so on, advice direction. And then later on, obviously, Shabab emerged, which is, did he call them Khawarij? I don't think we can call them Khawarij genuinely in that sense. They are more like Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and more like a Shafi'is, but I don't think how much structural ideology and ideas they have, how much education they have. They seem to be in certain situations, they have control in certain areas. They appear to be quite reasonable in applying Sharia and things like that. It's far away, far cry from Daesh and things like that. So it is a time for Islam and so on to sit with these leadership and try to see if they can agree on obviously, the first thing which we agreed upon is that to clean any invading non-Islamic forces out of the country. Liberation is the first step, because the main problem happened, obviously, by Ziad Barre adopting Kufr and so on, and the people rebelled against him for good reasons and bad reasons, some of them good reasons, some bad reasons, and it led to the disintegration. After that, we have warlords, and the situation became like a federation somehow. Now, in every federation, maybe a tribe and so on, let's focus on one of these entities where, for example, Islamists are more dominant. They should be able to work together and meet and discuss. There's no other way. If he thinks that we have like a recipe, put so much salt and so much pepper and add 1 kilogram meat and so on, we don't have. That doesn't exist. They have to meet, discuss with each other, say this area is the tribe here are accommodating for Islam. The Somali are generally accommodating for Islam. Generally, that's well known. One of the few people or nations which is 100% Muslim, essentially. There's no Christian, no animist, and so on in Somalia, essentially, including even Ogaden in South Ethiopia. But focus on one area where the Islamists are more dominant, and then come to a conclusion. First of all, clean the country locally. See what common things in Sharia, what well-established things can be established, so you can have a good model. And any foreign forces, like Ethiopian forces, like Kenyan forces, like the Pan-African forces, like American forces, and so on, to be expelled. In the case there are Turkish forces, you have to meet with the local leaders with them. Listen, we are Muslims. Are you here as Muslims or as secular? If you are as Muslims, then we have to come to a conclusion with you in some sense or another. Allegedly, but most likely the army is coming as a representative of the secular Turkey, most likely. But still, you can touch base with them. If you behave like secular country, we regard you like no difference than the American forces. We have to expel you. We have to see clear what's going on. That's the fact that Turkey, the majority of the people of Turkey, the overwhelming majority are Muslims. And Erdogan pretend to be a Muslim and caring for Muslim affairs is nice and so on, but this is not how things, war and peace are run. War and peace has to be run with more fundamental principles. That's the step number one. Coming to like what we addressed the people in Syria at the time, Ahrar and others. Sit with the others, try to come to a conclusion. Beware of Daesh. We told them from Daesh from the beginning, these are deviants. There is no hope in them. Don't be fooled by them that when they come and take over control points, claiming that was a mistake and ask for mediation and so on. These people have been confronted with the sword. I don't think Shabab should be treated this way from other Islamists. But you have to come and adopt something more in detail. In Afghanistan, things work good because all the Afghanis and the Mawlawis there and so on, essentially Hanafi, and they refer to Hanafi fiqh. Yes, it is backward, it is 7 centuries old, it is dark age fiqh. We know all of that, but still there's something everyone agree upon essentially. It seems to be in Somalia, that's not the situation. Also with the structure of the state. Federal is good, but start with one federal place where you have sufficient power, or several at the same time, and keep the good relation with the intent to get first the foreign forces out and then get try to get to control the federal government. But it has to be from the bottom up, because until now, no single group was able to enforce itself, either because it's too small or because it's not understanding what an Islamic state in the modern time means, what are implications as well. You see what my point? So that's the first step. Otherwise, you will be addressing something abstract, theoretical. I could say theoretically, okay, adopt Tajdeed and establish a Tajdeed party and work from there. But you have already a good starting material. So we have, for example, our book on Muwala and Muada. We have our book about, so you see issues of war and peace. You have fighting resistance groups, which shows the limitation, where to fight or not to fight. We have the Islamic citizenship and immigration and Haq Tahrir Masir. This is, I think, is a breakthrough. And soon we'll have, inshallah, but this is not relevant for because there's no issue with Difa' al-Talab. This what's going on in Somalia is defensive jihad. There's no Difa' al-Talab. So Somalia are not thinking to take Kenya or go to Abyssinia. That's out of question anyway. So, but this will come soon. So this is the starting material. And agree on the most fundamental and agreeable points. It should be possible even to have good bridges with Ansarullah, or even if they are Zaidi. Okay, you may believe that the Ahlul Bayt are worthy of Imamah, provide the Imam asks his right and so on. Okay, you can believe in that. For the time being, there's nobody claiming to be from Ahlul Bayt, and nobody is asking for the Imam for himself, and nobody has the force and the power to do it. So let us refer to the people and go to the Shura, the original Shura. Exactly like what happened in Iran with Khomeini. Said, okay, divinely appointed Imam, there's one you claim or we claim it's in some kind of a tunnel somewhere, but how to manage affairs now? He needed, because he did not want to offend the majority of Shia, he needed obviously to construct something out of this madhab. So he made Wilayat al-Faqih. But in practical application, it's essentially sure. With election and so on, you have to get to that level at least. You have to outrun Khomeini at least. Nobody has excuse not to be less than Khomeini. That's the reason I'm blaming Taliban, that they should have outrun him. They should have been becoming more modern than him. But they're still stuck deep in maybe they have an excuse because they're tribal. And also the tribal system with Louis Jarga and so on, is it some kind of consultation which fits backward tribal society type? Okay, you could say, we can pass that as a basic shura for the time being. But it can't stay forever. Just for transition period. Now the country is becoming industrialized and developed. It has to develop into some really a post-tribal society. And that's exactly what happened in Saqifa and so on. Our work about Saqifa also shows how Shura looks like at that time, but how it developed further. And start from there. No, nothing can be more, no more advice. Anything else is just abstract and philosophical. Yeah. But at least we have these models now, which seems to be working reasonably. Iran, or Khomeini, overcame the problem with this hidden imam and all these things by a trick. It's a trick, this Wilayat al-Faqih, just to connect it to the hidden imam. Using a hadith which everyone knows is faulty, was weak or fabricated even. Allegedly, one of the letters of the hidden imam to one of the so-called Naib deputies outside says, soon I will be going into the long absenteeism. In my long absenteeism, you cannot even come and write to me, and I write to you back at the Sardab, at the tunnel in Samarra. In that case, the authority over you should be those who narrate our reports. And the Khomeini treated that as the fuqaha, because they are the one narrating and understanding our reports. So we write al-Faqih. And based on that, he established that system using essentially institution and to establish is essentially shura with a flavor of Wilayat al-Faqih nominally, is really more or less a shura or something like that. In Yemen, we have Ansarullah, although they are Zaidi, they have established something, a structure which is Shafi'i and other madhahib. Even Salafi are in the command, in the presidential command and leadership. Al-Malik al-Houthi may be like a supreme leader, like in Iran, like some kind of spiritual authority, but really, I think the military forces, the civil administration, and so on, they are really participating considerably, and the common Yemeni are having considerable participation. But maybe they do not have yet election and so on. Maybe, I'm not sure about the details. Afghanistan is also relying on this old-fashioned Louis Jarga and things like that. But sooner or later, they have to do really election everywhere and so on. When the national development negates the tribal society and gets further. That's the procedures and so on. You see the procedures suitable for you. But here you have models. You have models. But for that, obviously, the leadership of these mostly Islamic direction, like time passed in the 90s, I was following sometimes, but then I gave up because the situation is simply, we don't have enough information, we don't have any details. There was called the Mahakim, at the time with the so-called Sharia courts were really ruling somehow. This seems to be, they were quite reasonable. I think Shabab were interacting with them positively, or they emerged from them. I don't know about these details. You know your situation better. So there's no recipe in such a detail. But meeting and analyzing, I have also another much more important example: Hamas and the Jihad, and the other even secular groups but they are minor. They are taken on board just to have everyone on board. Essentially, they are minority. They will never really exercise real power. The real power is that Hamas and the Jihad Islami. And some Salaf, some reasonable Salafi groups, not these Daesh style and so on, which have been hijacked by Israel and so on in Gaza. And they have good administration style, they have elections, some administrative model. You can check what they have and adopt some of it suitable for that situation. The situation is not necessarily exactly the same, but quite similar, being under siege. But the priority should be coming together, having maybe like a executive council of the various groups, and like what happened in Yemen, and priority number one, getting out any Kafir invading forces, and clarify the situation with the Turkish. By the local commander. So what we are doing here exactly, which agenda you are fulfilling? We need it in writing now. It's not that you agree with the central government because it's the one internationally agreed or something like that, and you put a base here. You're representing secular Turkey with a secular constitution. For us, you are essentially not very much different from an American base until proven otherwise. This seems to be a tall order, but don't think it's a tall order. You can't do that. You can very well do that. But first, you have to have your council, you have to have some basic adoption in one of the federal areas, being tribal or being regional or whatever it is, or in several, if it's possible at the same time. And then see, we'll go from there.
Okay, next question. Somebody's asked, why did Ansarullah, in your point of view, carry out a coup in Sana'a 2014 and 2015? And do you think if this was right? If yes, then what's the justification?
No, the issue is starting from the early 208, 28, 27, and so on. Ansarullah is just a small tribe. Like in North Yemen is 50-50 maybe, or maybe 55-45 Zaidi and so on, and Shafi and so on, maybe more Zaidi. And they were grievances against the government under Ali Abdullah Saleh Affash al-Ahmar, yeah? And then they have grievances, very simple ones, like more roads, more hospitals, more projects, things like that. No, not very much of revolutionary. The leadership, some of the leadership had also old grievances against Al-Adari, old stories. Anyway, they were sometimes in Iran. That's the reason they say they are Rafida and so on. But in reality, they are not. But anyway, Rafida or not Rafida is not relevant. And then they will have a conflict. And then because Saudis had conflict with Ali Abdullah Saleh for reasons concerning borders and his stand with Arab nationalism and with the Ba'ath in Iraq, at that he became weak, obviously, after the fall of Saddam. So they thought they can unseat him somehow, the Saudis. So they cooperated with Ansarullah. That's why you got Houthi. They were not, Ansarullah was not structured like that. And they moved against Ali Abdullah Saleh. Then later on, they made a settlement with Ali Abdullah Saleh, and they worked together, the Saudis and Ali Abdullah Saleh, against Al-Houthi. Then the Houthi was able, at that time, before 210, the time of the Dam Abdullah, to penetrate inside Saudi Arabia. They penetrated deep inside, attacked the Saudi army from the back. And there's a small tribe. They were able to do that at that time already. Show you how fragile this entity called Saudi Arabia, this big one, people regard as a very important entity, is actually very weak inside. Not structured probably to be really assertive in international relations, because it has no real ideology. The rulers, they want to keep the throne at any price and sell out to the big empires. Anyway, that's not the issue there. So they then they were then subdued a little bit. Then the Arabic Spring started in Tunisia, then Egypt, and then it's infected in Yemen. And the Yemeni people were moving against Ali Abdullah Saleh. Oh, it's a long story. Into 2011. Muslim Brotherhood did not side with the people. They were, because they were in coalition with the government. They were more with the government, but ambivalent, not clear what they are. Al-Qaeda and some Salafi, they preferred to go and conquer some villages on top of mountains, establishing Emirat. Stupid behavior. It doesn't make any sense. Instead of merging with the population and working together, because this is narrow-minded jihadi mentality. Not like the Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, which merged with Taliban, essentially, and was giving them advice and so on, cooperating with them and accepting their leadership and giving bay'ah. these guys there, they're living they're much more sectarian than Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan anyway. So these guys, so that all these energy is wasted there. Okay, so that's one. And also Qaeda at the time lost the capability of leading the people because the central figure was martyred, Osama bin Laden, and Zawahiri was in deep hiding. So the radiation of the Osama's character and the possibility of addressing the people and so on and giving the direction was not there. So in every area, someone regarded himself as the leader and the thinker, independent one. And then things developed complicated during, and then Abdullah passed away, and the situation is like that, back and forth. And then the Ansarullah, I think they were formed at that time. They were able to come to Sana'a, and Ali Abdullah Saleh was fighting them from outside Sana'a. So you just go back and follow the details in the news if you want to follow the details. And then ultimately Ali Abdullah Saleh was killed. And then some government was established. They claim it's a Sharia. Saudi Arabia claims it's a legal government. It's not illegal. It's not based on election or anything. So it's the elected government. It's not elected. There was no election. Some kind of a council which is not elected choose them. Obviously influenced by the money of Saudi Arabia and so on. And then from then it's a confrontation clearly between Saudi Arabia and Ansarullah, which is allied with the majority of the people of Yemen. That's the reality. That's the reality until now, century. So to answer the question, you have to go much deeper. It's not a matter of belief. The Houthi originally, they are the one who was oppressed and they were asking for their rights. And it degenerated in confrontation and warfare. Then compounded by the Arab Spring and the mass demonstration of Yemeni people of all persuasions in Sana'a. Peaceful demonstrations against Ali Abdullah Saleh, who, because of certain balances of power, because he's relying on the Ba'ath party or the remainder of it, nationalists, but also he relies on the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamists, and then the tribal chieftains. So these three forces were balancing each other. So the people were demonstrating peacefully, and nobody did any bloody crackdown. If they have done, it may have been a bloodbath in Yemen, because nobody is having real superiority. But things went much less violent than in Egypt, for example, where we have a central vicious army. We don't have that in Yemen. And they developed like I have seen. If you have to follow that from the beginning to ask a structured question. So Ansarullah did not do a coup d'etat. No, they invaded. They were originally invaded and originally oppressed, and they back forth and against the Saudis and with the Saudis. It's a wrong history. So you have to go to the news reports over now almost 16, 17 years from the beginning of the Houthi issue. I think it began to 27, 28, something like that. The first skirmish. Okay, so I hope that answered the question. It's more complex than that.
Okay, before I move on, just the last, and just out of courtesy, I'm answering the final question on this. So do you think the coup was justified?
There was no coup. And that's what I explained.
Okay.
Complex development. There's no coup. Okay. Even the movements, whether you're moving justified, some was justified, some is reaction to another movement.
Okay, next quick question someone's asked. Give me a second.
But you can have a general rule. Whoever is supported by the Saudis in this back and forth is almost certainly on the wrong side. Simply because the Saudis have no good intention for Yemen, no good intention for the people of Al Jazeera Arabiya, what they call Saudi Arabia, no good intention for Islam and Muslim, no intention for except keeping the throne and exercising power and arrogantly controlling the people. They want ulu and fasad. Ulu is clear. They want dominance and control and subdue everyone, enslave everyone under them, while they are slaves for the imperial powers. And fasad, what they did in Yemen, hundreds of thousands killed. Worse than what happened in Gaza, but it was not covered because all interests were against the Yemeni people. Nobody was supporting the Yemeni. In case of Gaza, there was powerful factions, Palestinian, Iran, Syria nominally, obviously, but not really, South Lebanon and so on with Palestine, and then groups in the West campaigning for Palestine until the genocide was exposed. The Saudi did almost a genocide in Yemen. I will not call it genocide because it's, yes, they killed maybe over 100,000 by bombing and so on, but the Yemenis are in the tens of millions, 20, 30 million. That's not to exterminate the people, that's to subdue them. So it's war crimes, but not a genocide. In Gaza, it's a genocide, an attempt to exterminate the people completely, erase them from existence. It's much worse. But war crimes, yes. So whoever was with Saudis from the beginning to end, back and forth, is most likely the one on the wrong side. But not every action. Some action may be right. Someone is forced to do that action. Someone needs to protect himself, and we don't know. But it was never submitted to any court or any mediating group of Muslims who sit neutrally and mediate. It's maybe sufficient to see when Pakistan, when the war against Yemen backfired badly, because they started when Salman came as a king, 2015. He started a few months later the war. I commented at that time, we had the time of broadcast going. I commented that this is the big rat, a fat rat, that Saudi Arabia is going into the trap without knowing, and it will be its demise. Maybe it will realize now. Anyway, they called it the definite storm. I think gave it name like the American use, epic storm, epic fury, all of these names. But then it started backfiring. They asked Pakistan for help because they have a treaty with Pakistan. Actually, there's a good contingent of Pakistani forces in Saudi Arabia. And that time, Imran Khan told them, listen, we are there to protect Haramain, to protect Saudi Arabia, not to fight outside. And that's the reason they became angry with Imran Khan, cooperated with various forces inside Pakistan and America to unseat him. And they succeeded to their own peril, inshallah. But anyway, that's what has happened. So Pakistan, someone who's relatively simple-minded, but not extremely evil, he may be a bit evil, but not as evil as the Shahbaz Sharif and Nawaz Sharif and the Saudis, said, no, I'm not going to get involved in that. This is aggression. We are here to defend the Haramain, defend Saudi Arabia, as Saudi Arabia as Haramain. That's it. Not to fight outside for you. And even the current government, they tried to get them against Iran. So I told them, listen, wake up to the reality. Get lost. So that tell you the situation. It's more complex than that they make a coup d'etat. It's not a coup d'etat. It's a conquest from outside. They're coming from the northeast. That's where the Houthi originally are. I mean, the Houthi is the name of a tribe. It's not the name of a madhab. Malik al-Houthi, because their tribe is called Houthi. I think is a subtribe of Hamdan. And Houthi is exactly as al-Asadi, al-Qurashi, and so on. It's not a madhab. They organize themselves as Ansarullah, which contains Zaidi, contains Shafi'i, contains other. People are trying to confuse that and play a game with that. But someone who's following that and talk about legitimacy and non-legitimacy should be following the news more detailed. Yeah. Now the one who's asking may be capable of using artificial intelligence. Like for example, you could. It will be a long project. It will not happen in one session. Don't expect it to be in one session. Ask ChatGPT or another artificial intelligence to give you a summary of the events in the conflict in Yemen since 2007 between Houthi, Saudi Arabia, and Ali Abdullah Saleh, ongoing until today. What are the main steps? Who invaded whom? Who attacked whom? Who declared war or declared attacks or whatever it is? And you'll see. We give you maybe at least summary of the news, the main highlights, not the daily news, the big news. Cities conquered, borders breached, things like that. Then you have a general idea what has been developing there. Okay, and then we go from there. Then you have a good summary. Then we can comment on it in more detail. I commented on some of that in time. Some of it, not all of it. Because most of it was happening when Syria was in the last phase. I was commenting more on Syria. Essentially, in the Arab Spring, my commenting was originally mostly on Egypt and then on Syria. And Yemen was third, smaller, because the situation was not so bloody and vicious until the Saudis invaded. But after the Saudis invaded in 2015, I just said that will be the end of Saudi Arabia. This is the big fat rat going to the trap without knowing it. It will end with its own demise. It simply this will be the one who should bring their demise ultimately. I mean the regime, and did not follow after that very much because the picture was clear now. Saudi Arabia is the aggressor, and Ansarullah and the Yemeni are the one in defense, and they seem to be the one who are more Islamic and more devoted to Islam, much cleaner, much more better organized in Islamic grounds. And the only fault is that they were listening to the semi-secular government in Iran at the time, Rouhani and so on. Or don't do that. America will come invade us. America will do that and so on. So they do not do the decisive steps which could have unseated and defeated the Saudis long ago. They could have done that in 2019. They missed that. Now they're paying the price. But the main problem is they are listening to the advice of the Rouhani government and so on at that time, unfortunately. Anyway.
Okay. Next quick question.
Yeah.
Is it permissible to work for companies that do business in the stolen, occupied Palestinian land and collaborate with entities occupying Palestine? So just context, my understanding is the professor thinks that the boycott movement is good, but if you don't boycott, you are not sinning, and these movements have greater impact.
Yeah, but this is promoting goods and so on, but working for a company which is working there and cooperating with the occupation, definitely it's not permissible.
But over there, so for example, take if you work for Google, Google has branches there, but you're not working in those branches.
Oh yeah, that's not in the branches, but he's talking about company working there.
Oh, so directly those companies physically within there.
Yeah.
So you being in the occupied territories and working.
Yeah, or the work which you connect to occupied companies directly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone working in Microsoft in Reading in their headquarters.
Has nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Okay.
Because anywhere in the world where it will have some connection to some enemy of Islam somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Almost certainly. Almost certainly. Even if you work in a farm in America, some of the milk may become dried milk and go to some invading force in the Gulf. What is this? Never ends this like that.
Mm-hmm.
Must be clear work and clear connection. You're working on something which is going for a software which is going to and you know from the description of software what is it. And usually you have the description of software, it is doing this and this and this, or identifying faces, for example, of crowds of 1,000, 10,000 people. Where is it going with that to be used? In Gaza. We know that. But programming general artificial intelligence, it can be used anywhere for any purpose and things like that. I think everyone with some reason could look at that.
Okay. If anyone wants to unmute, feel free. Next question. This might be a bit of a long. So there's two questions. One is going to be a very long one. It's related to chess. The brothers put all the evidences. I think that's probably worth maybe doing for another occasion when we have more time.
Mm-hmm.
Another one. This might also be a bit long. Can you elaborate on what exactly happened during the battle between Ali and Muawiyah? And who were the people that pushed Ali to accept the agreement? And how was his assassination linked to that agreement?
That's best you see anything about Siffin and so on. These details are not very relevant for me as well. We are completing and writing the issue about Muawiyah, that he's the one who killed Uthman. That's now we think we have all the evidence now in one place, and that he is the one who finished the Khilafah Rashida, and that is from his side. It is really because of nifaq and kufr, not because of political dispute. So he's lying when he says he's looking for the blood of Uthman and so on. That's what interests us in the book which we are preparing now, which has the title Muawiyah bin Abi-Soufiyan, Hadim al-Khilafah, Qatil Uthman, Hadim al-Khilafah Rashida, the killer of Uthman and the demolisher of the rightly guided Khilafah. That's what interests us. The detail of Siffin is of little relevance for this, really. Is there little relevance for that? But there are books about Siffin and various summaries. It may be interesting. There's a book called Su'ud Muawiyah, The Ascent of Muawiyah. It may, in 3 volumes. We're planning to discuss it with some group of Shabab to analyze it and see if anything helps in our main book. And it seems to be some people who were called Qurra, which became later Khawarij. It seems to be. That's the first side. They are one who insisted. And possibly, also Muawiyah has a mischief and penetrated them from the background. Because he has agents in the army of Ali, definitely. And have hired guns and so on. So not all these Qurra are pure and just devoted and extreme. No. Some of them are paid, which is natural. You will not find any party in the world or any group or any organization which is devoted to a cause, even extreme, that all of them to the last man are to that cause. There will be spies under them. There will be people who think there's an opportunity to gain something. The people join them because he is in love with the daughter of one commander there and he wants to get married to her, so he joins. All of these happen, human life. So, and Muawiyah as a munafiq and deceiver, he will use all these facilities, all kind of cheating and so on. So just general answer. It seems to be the one pushed them in that direction. It seems to be, Allahu Alam. But this is of secondary importance. That's right. There's no doubt that the trick is made by Amr ibn al-As, suggested to Muawiyah, and both made it, and they succeeded in. And before that, they did some preparation. Amr ibn al-As and Muawiyah are not stupid. They will not just lift themselves, come to the book of Allah. They must have done some preparation. And this is lifting the Masahif. The people did not respond in the same minute. There was a discussion going for several days and back and forth and so on. Yeah, Safin itself was going, I think, for about 90 days, 3 months, with some days off, some days on. Ceasefire for some time, opening some time. See any modern book about Safin. Ibn Khaldun has a section about Safin. I think it's quite reasonable because he's historically quite critical. But nobody really did it from really a more scrutinizing and a modern point of view. We have this Saud Muawiyah. I think one of the volume of the 3 is devoted to Safin. I think, I'm not sure. We will start analyzing it with some group of researchers of the Shabab to see if there's anything valuable for that, but also if there's anything valuable. Also, I have also a folder about Safin, but that's not a priority for us because the details of Safin is without relevance. It's a relevance for establishing who is Muawiyah and what did he do. Is it a dispute, like most people say, it's a political dispute between Sahaba, or it is really a counter-revolution, a ridda, an apostasy, covered under Islamic names? A counter-revolution, because Islam was a revolution, definitely, against shirk and tyranny. This is a counter-revolution, yes, it is. But the first counter-revolution, the open ridda, did not succeed. Now they do it the hidden way, the nifaq way. That's what we want to establish. And demolish also because Muawiyah is regarded now as, even there, everyone admit that he's not Khalifa Rashid, they still regard him as a model of governance and things like that. And this has to be demolished for ideological and aqidah and legalistic reasons. That's the most important things. The details of the battle, who was tricky, who was not tricky, is interesting, but it's not world-shattering. You see my point? Okay. But see Saud Muawiyah. Assalamu
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
You said that the people of they were, what do you call it? They denied the hukm of Allah, as in they were mushrik in that way. That's why they got destroyed, yes?
Sorry, dude, we can't hear you. Can you repeat again? Get closer to the mic. It broke up. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Full context. Yeah, put full context in your question.
Oh, I said, it's good. I remember one time overhearing you guys said that the people of Mut, they denied the Hakimiyya, and that's why they were destroyed.
Yeah, that's what I argued, that there's nowhere any evidence that they have idols in the classical sense. That's all what I argued.
All right, so could you say that it's also the same for the shaitan?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's the same for the shaitan. He rebelled against Allah's command. That's the same.
I mean,
You
that
can't stay
counts as
formalizing like that, but he rejected Allah's command. That's essentially rejecting the ultimate sovereignty and wisdom of Allah's command and the necessity dictated by reason and by Sharia to unconditional surrender and submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mm.
Okay, that's the same. That's it. Yeah, that's it. This is kufr and shirk.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh yeah. What distinguishes that between like a regular person when they just commit like a sin?
One's a sin and one's judgment and rejection.
Regular one. Regular what?
Like let's say somebody commits a sin, like somebody commits zina or something.
The Quran says clearly, see what Adam did.
Mm.
I use the word asa. Adam, he was deceived. He rejected the command of Allah.
There's a difference between a sin and rejection. You see the distinction?
Because Adam immediately recognized that he made a mistake after the blunder.
If you say, for example, here's an example. Say you do not do zina, but you say, I reject the rule of zina. I think it's outdated. That's kufr.
Yeah.
If you did 5,000 million zinas, but still believed in a hukum, you're still nominally a Muslim. That's the distinction. It's not the action itself, it's the understanding behind it. Although legislation is slightly different as well. In terms of enacting legislation is a different thing as well.
Yeah.
But in principle, you understand the distinction. I mean, we're doing this in Tawheed, you sometimes attend it. Go through the whole Tawheed thing. Go through the distinction between Iman and just as being more than just as tasdeeq. That's another mistake that people had. That Iman is just tasdeeq, just merely professing the belief or understanding the belief. And you have the clear example of two Jewish men who came to the Prophet ﷺ and they were they accepted he's the Prophet, but they didn't follow him. They remained as kuffar.
Yeah.
So this is what the Kitab al-Tawheed is all about.
Yeah. Read the Kitab once, twice until this becomes clear. Your mind very sharp.
And if you find any counters, then bring any counterpoints of view, inshallah. But this is the distinction between Iman as being more than just tasdeeq. Like, for example,
see the story of saying when Allah says, "Ma mana'aka an tasjuda amartuk." See, the question is clear. Summarize everything. What prevents you from making sujood when I commanded you? Now, Iblis answered, your command is not acceptable. It's somehow wrong. And khayrun minhu. Meaning, my consideration of being that sujood should be performed only from the lower to the higher, but I am higher than him, I'm better than him. That's not a correct answer. You could be higher than him, still Allah can command you to prostrate for him. Allah commands, overrides everything. Besides, this consideration, being higher or lower, is irrelevant for this issue by itself. Is a deceptive answer. You didn't say, oh, I made a mistake. I misunderstood. I thought it's optional. I could not overcome my arrogance. Forgive me. He would have accepted. Like Adam. When Allah asked him, Alam anhakum, didn't I command you not to and warned you from the devil? How can you listen to him? They said, we committed a mistake. It's difference, fundamental difference. Look at it and try to absorb it.
Okay, somebody else has a question now. Last question before we do Palestine update. Far away.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Doctor, I had a conversation with an individual recently where their complaint was that within the Quran there is a theme of divine threat, right? Jannah and Jahannam constantly throughout the text. However, if we refer to the books of the past, whether it's the New Testament and specifically the Tanakh and the Torah, the theme of this heaven and hell is from the earlier text towards like Jesus's time, it starts to develop, right? But it's pretty much missing from the earlier text. How do we reconcile this?
It's very simple. It has been clipped away. It has been cut away.
So the scribes of the past were basically hiding the concepts of Jahannam and Jannah, etc.
Yeah, in the Apocrypha, in the hidden books and so on, yeah.
Right.
And most of these books of it, a question, what is the Torah? The Quran used the Torah in various things. Usually it means the abstract term, which means what has been revealed to Musa, which is, we know the Quran says clearly, he has been written to him certain commands and certain injunctions in the alwah, in the tablets. And the Quran used the word tablets in plural, or the Arabic has a word for dual. And in the Old Testament, it says 2 tablets, not alwah. So that's one interesting thing. Secondly, they claim that Allah dictated to him other things which he wrote himself. Musa wrote in Mount Sinai. We don't know if that's true or not, but the Quran mentioned that they were a suhuf of Musa in two places of the Quran. In هذا الصحف صحف إبراهيم موسى, and in another place also ذكر أو ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى ألا تزر وزرة وزر أخرى. So that's also mentioning the suhuf. So it seems to be we have some suhuf which either written by Musa himself or dictated to his students in Mount Sinai or after that, during his life or only on one occasion, we don't know, and the tablets. That's what the Torah in the Quran mentions, the Torah originally, which has been revealed and so on. Only when the Quran mentioned something which is clearly meaning what they have in their hand, then he mentioned the Torah according to their definition. That's it. The only place which is you refer that what they in their hand is in the Surah Al-A'raf when he says الرسول أمي about Muhammad الرسول أمي الذي يجدونه, they find it مكتوبا عنده في التوراة والإنجيل and describe some of his attributes. So that يجدونه, this is testify that what they have in their hand in time of the relation to Muhammad is already containing things about Muhammad, and we know that in Deuteronomy there's the mentioning of the Prophet to come with the characteristic of Muhammad or the Christians say it's for Isa. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, the other places we mentioned coming from Varan and all these things, Al-Qaidar and all these things. So that's testified that it's scattered somewhere. And concerning Al-Injil is in two things. One is a hidden way, was misunderstood through history, when Isa was essentially announcing the coming of the kingdom. That's misunderstood by the majority of Christian early times, and by Paul specifically, it means the kingdom at the end of time, not now in the other universe. But even they thought it's the kingdom now, like other disciples, they thought it would be established by Isa. But when after the before ascension, they asked him, teacher, master, when we are going to establish the kingdom? He did not answer that. Said, I must go now at the one who comes after me, the Paracletus or Paracletus or whatever it is, will come and tell you the truth about me and tell you things you should come to understand now. So the announcement of the kingdom is the announcing of the sovereignty of the law, the end of monarchy, the end of this, and what came Muhammad. But it's in a summary form. And then before the ascension, he told them, I have to go so that the one who will tell you the truth about me in full and give all the facts and so on will come and tell you. That's Muhammad. So it's in their hand. So is that what they have now in their hand? That's the only place was that in their hand. Every other place, it is that what revealed. So let us compare that and give an example. The story of Baqarah. Give an example of the Tahrif. The story of Baqarah and the sacrifice and the Baqarah Safra, waqa'u lawnaha. You go to what they call Torah. It should be there, the story. It's a very significant story. Sheikh Genesis, nothing there. Okay, that is before Musa. Sheikh Exodus, okay, that's before the story of Baqarah. Baqarah after they have exited Egypt. Okay. Sheikh Numbers is concerned the tribes of Bani Israel and their area and so on. Most of it's fabricated anyway. But Sheikh Leviticus, Kitab al-Lawiyin, the book of Levites, is about sacrifice and so on. Sheikh Deuteronomy, no story of the Baqarah, but there's a story about what the priest does in the case he attend to a dead body to purify himself because he become najis. And there's a red heifer mentioned. Pure red heifer. That's the only big heifer there. No story about this and reviving a dead and convincing the people about Akhirah there. The whole story has been clipped because it mentioned Akhirah. Now I'll give you something, but it's purely speculative. I came to this idea very recently. Keep that in mind, and maybe you should follow that if you have a long life and you're interested in Christian religion. It is the speculation about Zarathustra, when he was and so on. Some people say 800 before Christ, 700-800. Some people say 1200. Some people feel even 1600. The most well-balanced point of view says about 1200 before Christ. And his story, as they narrate, is that he is a man who got inspiration and so on, and started this movement, this religion, essentially monotheistic when he started. I have a speculative theory supported with the following, because he mentioned the devil quite frequently, more than in the Old Testament, and he mentioned Jannah and Nar and so on. They have this concept, and also they have a concept of wudu and purification. But the interesting point is that the Persian have, since the time of Zarathustra on, their calendar is essentially a copy of the Egyptian calendar. The Egyptian calendar is 360 days, 12 months each were 30, and then 5 extra days. So 12 months, 12 months each of 30, and then 5 monthless days. They have 5 well-known names. That's exactly what the Persians have in ancient time. So how come that was established by the Egyptian 2.5, 3 millennia before Christ? So well before even Zarathustra existed in the most liberal theory, most ancient theory that was 1800 before Christ. It is well before him. How come that this calendar we find in the Persian? How could it have gone there used by the Zarathustrian? My speculation is the following. At the time of Zarathustra, around 1200, something like that, before Christ, that's the time of the judges, of the prophets, when Bani Israel was managed by prophets, not by kings yet. Then the communication between North Persia and Asia Minor and what's his name, Mesopotamia, Iraq, and so on, and Egypt was ongoing, and business and traffic was going along the time. He may have decided to go and explore the world there. Passcode went to Egypt, saw this calendar, he liked it, adopted, and on the way, he was surprised to find the prophets and the judges in Bani Israel there, and he got inspired by them, or he adopted their religion and adopted the various. So he got the idea of the devil and etc. and the Jannah and Nar and resurrection, so from there, and also purification and wudu, plus the calendar from Egypt, and took all of them and came back and established his religion. The old books about him mention only a few things. Maybe this is missed, is not there. So from that, if that's true, that he took essentially his point of view from an Israelite, because the only people of scripture of relevance which could be explaining what he has must be around the time 1200 before Christ. So at that time, the books and what the prophets have had, and the judges, the time of the judges, would have all these informations. But it was clipped after, when the kingdom came and those kings were fighting, and some of them turned into paganism, some of them adopted idols somewhere. For example, the North Kingdom, Israel, was mostly Baal worshipper, completely pagan. So they edited everything and changed everything, and the other edited back and forth and so on. And the North Kingdom attacked the South Kingdom and accused them for crimes, and they attacked these, and you said that in the Book of the Kings, various accusation and counter accusation. And that's what we have now in our hand. It was no more than 3 centuries before Christ. Nothing older than that is known with certitude.
That's a very interesting speculative theory.
Hold to that. Get a copy of that and memorize it and keep it, and keep following that for the long run. But that has been edited out. Even they have, I think, I think in Talmud or somewhere else, Ezra saying, God revealed 70-something books. 37 or 27 are public, everyone has, and the rest are hidden only for the initiated, for the scholars. From these hidden, some have been found, like the Book of Eunuch and these, and they have other things, sometimes completely different than what we have in the public books. But it's attributed to Israel. But all what we have really from Bani Israel, in our hand, confirmed by the Dead Sea Scrolls, is up to the 3rd century before Christ. We have nothing, no manuscript, we have maybe an inscription here and there in Palestine, possibly from 1,000 years before Christ, which has one verse or something like that. That's nothing. One verse is easy to have. We have tens of thousands of verses in all the books. So that one verse which contains a divine praise or prayer for some dead or something is not. proves nothing. It proves only that it looks similar to that we have in the books. That's it. But complete books or good fragments, we have only in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's it. Based on that, we know what the Jews have in their hand. And also, it goes older than the Greek translation, is called the Septuagint. The Greek translation was done by one of the kings of Egypt who descend from the one who is the great grandfather of Cleopatra. These are Greek commander of when Alexander died, they split the kingdom between them, and the people one took Egypt, one took Syria and part of Asia Minor, and he was in conflict with the Jews for some time. Then they defeated him, and one took Iraq and Iran, and was the Persian. They are also Greek. They are not Persian. And one stayed back home in Macedonia and the Greece and the Greek islands in that area. The one in Egypt was interested in culture. The second one, what's their name? But Ptolemaeus. The second one was interested and made Alexandria a center of the world of culture and established a library. And then he wanted to have a translation of this interesting book of the Jews. And in his time, at least the five first books, the Pentateuch, was translated. And possibly the others later, bit by bit, or all of them at that time. There's a legendary story that all of it was translated at that time by 70 and so on. That's they call it the Septuagint Saboniya. Most likely it's legendary. But the translation started at that time. So that reserved the situation at like 230, 240 before Christ. So we have the Septuagint in Greek, essentially similar to that, some of the Dead Scrolls which we found in the Dead Sea Scrolls going to 250, 30, that's it. But the one version in the hand of the Jews now, which they collected over history, they said there's the civilization, there's a gap because the Jews have the habit, when they transcribe a new version, they destroy the old ones. Luckily, that when the Dead Scrolls survived as an evidence for us by Allah's grace. So what we have in the 10th century, which is there until now, we have it. We have one in Leningrad, one here, and that was acknowledged generally. That's what the Christians have adopted later. They say that's better than the Septuagint. Anyway, that one, you can see there's the copying process can be sometimes excellent, like for the book of Isaiah is almost exactly like the one found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Almost exactly. Only 200 variation, mostly orthographic and minor in a very big book. That's we have. But we have, for example, the book of Jeremiah, which is an important book, very important book. We have the Dead Sea Scroll and the Septuagint having about 10% more sentences and so on than the one we have the Jews collected in the 10th century after Christ, recently. So they have edited there. So the copying process is reliable in principle, but you have to trust that they change or not change. In the case of Isaiah, they barely changed anything, maybe just tribal errors. Here they have changed. So what do we have going to the 3rd century before? There is one exception. In the 19th century, one scholar who was living in Palestine at that time, under the Khilafah Uthmaniyya, was interested in archaeology and so on, claimed he found a scroll past the Jordan in the desert, and which seemed to be a copy of Deuteronomy written with the old Hebrew script, not the current Hebrew script, the old one, which was written before the Babylonian exile. And he dated that to that time. And was barely readable, but he was able to copy it with his own hand, like several pages, not all of the manuscript, but a sample. And then was trying to sell it in Europe, but was accused of fabrication and things like that. That sample he wrote, that translation is, I think, a copy is available in Berlin and maybe a copy in England is available. But the original one, the scroll, disappeared. I think it was either Shapiro was found dead in a hotel, possibly killed, and the scroll disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to the scroll. Maybe it's somewhere. One of the rich people is keeping it a secret. We don't know. So we don't have the scroll to verify. But The transcript is very similar to Deuteronomy with considerable variations. And the writing is the Old Hebrew, which is very unlikely that Shapiro knew about it in that form. So most likely he is telling the truth. It's an old one, maybe from the Babylonic exile, was in a cave in Transjordan, in Jordan, not in Palestine, in a very dry area. But it was blackened completely, and he had put it in light and transcribed for very meticulous and tried to sell it, but nobody gave him the price he wanted. He was demanding price for the current prices in the millions, and nobody was willing to say, oh, no, he's a fabricator, he's a liar. There's discussion about this Shapiro until now. I am inclined from seeing the discussion that the man told the truth. There may be there definitely a scroll like that, because the form of the script of the Old Hebrew was at that time not known yet. It was found later in other scripts. So where he did invent it from his imagination, it's not impossible. So it must be genuine. So the man did not lie. He found that this scroll, but the scroll itself is not here, but the transcript is here. And they seem to be. That's different than the Deuteronomy in our hand. Significant portions of it and sentences are different. So an older version of the Deuteronomy in our hand, which is essentially a copy of the Deuteronomy 3 centuries before Christ, and also essentially the translation of the Septuagint, an older copy, maybe 4 or 5 centuries before, is quite different. So the fabrication and the embellishment isn't going from 1200 before Christ until 400 before 350, 400 before Christ. So they can mutilate everything. Just take that one example. You see how much mutilation can have been done in the books.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikhna.
So this is the claim of now seculars and saying, oh, this shows that the hell and the devil and so on, all these are late ideas developed and imported from Persia. Because the idea of the devil and the evil and so on came from Persia, I say no, it came from Zaradisht, and Zaradisht got it from Palestine when he passed to Egypt. And the only thing which encouraged me to say that boldly is that the calendar of the Zaradishtian and the old Persian is exactly the Egyptian calendar, which is logically not acceptable, because the Egyptian developed it because they are agricultural society since 3000 before Christ. So they follow the sun exactly. And at that time, it was clear that 365. Obviously, the quarter of day was missing and accumulated over 1,000 of years to a big error. But anyway, later on, it was corrected near our time. But, the same correction happened with the Julian and Gregorian calendar. Needed to be corrected, this small fraction. So the correction came much later, just before Christ. But earlier, it was that one. 360 plus 5 days. That's suitable for agricultural society, a sophisticated one, the Egyptian. Zaradisht was in a shepherd society, which do not need to have such a sophisticated calendar. Most likely they have originally a lunar calendar, which is the simplest for nomads and simple societies. So they have exact the same one, must be taken from there. And it's later than the Egyptian, definitely by 2,000 years later. No doubt about that. So he must have been there, adopted that, and all these records of him, maybe he mentioned all of that, but his follower did not copy everything and kept it as it should be, but kept the main structure. Because they have wudu, they have ablution, they have devils, they have akhirah, they have jannah, they have all of these things they have, I think, in Zaradishtian, the original Zaradishtian literature. Okay, just hint. But it's a very interesting area. But so the secular will tell you, no, these all ideas actually, even Yahweh is some kind of a pagan wind god or storm god or something like that.
Thunder god, yeah.
Or because they say they found it of some Canaanite. Who said the Canaanite did not adopt it from the Jews? This is exactly, these people are just imagining things because they start from beginning. There's no God, no revelation. So we have to explain that according to our presumption.
Inshallah, I'll research further with this new information. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikhna.
So that's it. So don't trust these old books at all. Only bits and pieces may be trustworthy. it maybe just remind you another point. Even starting the embellishment and change started with the book of Samuel, first one. In Samuel, the story of Talut and so on, I discussed that in the Malakiya Warathiyya, the details of it. Yeah, I discussed that and said we cannot trust it 100%, but it looks genuine. The Quran mentioned the story, just only the issue of jihad, and show that they are lying. They don't want jihad, they want to be kings. Yeah. قالوا إن بعثنا ملك قاتل، قال هل عسيتم كنت عليكم القرار لا تقاتلوا ترى على الكلب انتم كذابين. قالوا لا كيف نقاتل. فلما عين عليهم طالوت رفضوا. قصة معروفة. بعد كده يقول بعد كده بعض ما ذكر عن طالوت خير ولا شر كثير بعد ذلك الا مساله انه عبرها بالمثل قصه عبور النهر وكذا ما هي مذكوره في قصه في صمويل.
Yeah, Doc, you've gone into Arabic. We can't understand.
The story with Talut and crossing the river and nobody should drink except for a handful is not mentioned in Samuel. Not attributed to Talut. Is mentioned in Gedeon, in the book of the previous prophets. It's not attributed to Talut. That must have been clipped from there and placed there, or it has happened twice. I think it was clipped there because the people who wrote and edited Samuel number 1 were not happy that Talut is have this great virtue. Then the Quran mentioned after that Allah adopted Dawood and so on, and Dawood qatala Jalut. Why is this small issue which is no relevance? Why? He would ask him, okay, Dawood qatala Jalut. Yeah, fine. We know that this is in Samuel. We know that everyone knows that. No, not everyone knows that, because in Samuel, the edited one, the falsified one, after a few lines after mentioning that David killed Goliath, Jalut, after a few lines, it mentioned another man who killed Goliath. So we have someone inserted an ayah there trying to remove the virtue from Dawood, but he could not remove the one of Dawood completely. So the Quran gives you a hint. Don't listen to what the guys are having in their books. They are lying. It's Dawood who killed that man, not the other one. I don't remember the other one, but you can check the book of Samuel after the ayah, the verse which Dawood, in which is mentioned that Dawood is the one who killed with the sling, killed Jalut. 2-3 ayahs later, it mentions another man who killed him in a completely different context, which shows that they have inserting story inside each other, trying to as best as they can, but it's different. In Genesis itself, go and you see 2 creation stories completely impossible to synchronize. Disregarding if they are true or false, but the 2 completely different creation stories, which are rationally impossible to be both true. Both are maybe false, but it cannot be both true. It's impossible. So Genesis, as it in our hands, is definitely a revelation. Is a composition of at least 2 manuscripts. So don't trust these things. Okay? I hope this helped a little bit for your research, but it's worth it. That's worth it really to devote good work for it.
Inshallah. Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh.
Okay, Sheikh, let's go on to Palestine update. Let me stop the stream.
Inshallah.